Hey, it is time for movies worth talking about. I am John Carlos, and I am here with,
Eddie!
and we're going to talk about Saw 3D, Jigsaw, and Spiral. We've already talked about 1, 2, 3. We already talked about 4, 5, 6. If you haven't seen those, you can go back and watch those.
All good things come in threes.
Your words say all good things, but your face makes it sound like they're not good things.
Well, we'll get into it.
Let's get into it. The confusingly the way the title was handled.
Yeah.
Seventh Saw was just Saw but 3D,
Mm-hmm.
and then for home video release, they called it Saw: The Final Chapter, which is to me one of the most like after Friday the 13th Part 4, no one gets to call it the final chapter anymore, and yet Resident Evil, like people keep trotting out the final chapter.
Yep.
Even though when you watch it on home video, they didn't manipulate the credits to
No.
reflect that. It's still a theatrical Saw 3D.
Right.
So weird.
Yeah.
And I'll say this up front right now, because this is the first one I saw in theaters, and first one I saw in theaters since the first one, and binging like 2 through 6 leading up to its theatrical release, I was now kind of like into the story, right? And it's all about, this is the final movie, like this is the end, we're ending the series, come see the final movie. And then it ends like every other Saw movie ends, where I'm like, well, I want to know what happens next. This is not the fucking final movie. Like this, where's Saw 8? I remember being so pissed about the ending because it didn't feel like it had finality.
Oh.
And I
Okay.
immediately just wanted another movie. And I'm like, why the fuck? God damn it. However, and we can get into it in a little bit, I'm actually the ending actually kind of plays, I don't want to say with more finality upon second viewing, but like I'm good with where it ends.
Okay.
I'm better with it.
Yeah. As previously established on the past pods, I remembered absolutely nothing about this except that Carrie Elways came back. And I did remember the reveal at the very end. Spoilers, everybody. I did remember the reveal at the end where Carrie Elways like pulls off the pig mask and he's there and he's got like all of these other kind of minions who are, I guess, carrying on the legacy and protecting even the legacy of Johnny Jigsaw. But I didn't remember anything in the middle. So right off the bat when it opened, and like we see Dr. Larry cauterizing the wound, and that's all fine and good. But we see Dina, Brad, and Ryan in their trap, in that opening trap. And immediately, first I noticed just the resolution of like the film, just the way it appears in the frame.
I mean, or lack of film. I didn't look it up, but it sure looks
digital,
3D digital, like the
yeah. I mean, it's cleaner for sure and brighter, and the colors are more naturalistic, and I don't mean naturalistic in a desaturated way, but not heavily saturated either. Just kind of like, oh, it looks like we're a mall.
Yeah.
But there was something about that kill scene, the whole sequence, that didn't really. It was interesting that they decided to call it Saw: The Final Chapter ultimately, because there was something about it that didn't seem epitomal of Saw. It felt far more exploitative. Doesn't mean I'm not into it though. I was full on rooting for those two guys to kill her. Just because she's a liar and she's also openly
manipulating
deceitful.
both of them.
Yeah, just like looking to see like who's going to win. Who knows where her true allegiance was? I thought it might have been with Brad, but maybe she just thought he had a better chance and was going to be stronger than Ryan. But anyway, but I was full on rooting for someone to die, which is not. I don't often think of that and associate it with this franchise, especially now that we've revisited them. I always thought the whole point was you're supposed to kind of like be pulled in two directions, or even if you can see the method and the madness and the reasoning, like the rationalization behind Johnny Jigsaw's motive or whoever's running the show, to almost legitimize it. You're still like, that's still a lot to go through. Like, I'm not sitting here going like, yeah, motherfucker, that's what it's about. Like, that's a very
Yeah.
those cases are very few and far between. But this one, I was full on. I was almost going, yeah. It was like it had a roller coaster energy to it, or even maybe like a sports. Like, and I don't watch sports, but I can, and when I do, I root for whatever team everybody else is rooting for, and it's fun. It's like, yeah.
It is a simpler kind of Saw story, but in that kind of, or it's in 3D, so we're kind of gonna go for broke when it comes to some of this shit. When it comes to the kills, it has that energy.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be the right energy for Saw, but you're right. It's undeniable that it's kind of fun in that way.
Exhilarating.
I agree with you. Well, and part of that's just because, unlike some of the Saw movies have been, just gory and like, oh look, someone's ribs get ripped open or whatever.
Sure.
But this one, I say, has some legitimately great kills when it comes to the simple art of special effects. Like and also you see this a lot where they will shoot like a dummy getting like its guts ripped out, and then they will match it to a live person screaming. So it's practical, but it also looks like there's a digital blend. There is that in this, but it's pretty good work. Like when the girl is getting her guts sawed in the beginning, like I can tell, but it's still really clean. The dream sequence with that little train that just blasts through Jill.
Oh my God.
The entire, like neo-Nazis car kill. The reverse bear trap, finally getting to see it after seeing it removed from Amanda and then blocked from Hoffman. This movie really, like, in that like horror gorehound Fangoria, just sort of like, let me see the shit.
Yes, there you go.
This movie really delivers in a way that none of the other Saw movies really do.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Jill because I have a whole thing. Okay. First off, I didn't remember that Hoffman lived. And it fucking pissed me. I thought we were through with him. I didn't remember that he was the one getting the comeuppance at the very end, because in my mind he was already gone. I guess I didn't focus on him the first time I watched the 7th movie at home.
The last shot of 6 is him like going, like alive out of the trap. Like,
I didn't think he was gonna survive it though, or not for long. The fact that he survives it long enough to like run after Jill, and for her to like I wrote here, he better not stay alive. And
are you
totally forgot
that he has far less screen time in this than like the other movies?
No, but okay, this is the thing. Okay, let's just begin at the ending. I mean, we've already begun, but I wrote this. I wrote this at the end of the movie, and we'll go back and fill in all the blanks. But I just wrote at this point, which is basically Hoffman got away in that body bag after the explosion, and he kills the coroner and kills all the people throughout and everything like that, because now he's a superhero and nobody is standing watch or surveilling anywhere he is. And he's going to kill Jill, and also Joyce is like in her trap, and they're both being killed simultaneously. And I just wrote, at this point, I wish both Joyce and Jill were written a little bit better.
Oof.
And also that like the course of their arcs, it's essentially 2 women brutalized simultaneously for loving the wrong man. They're paying the sins of the men who they married.
Yeah.
And both, I felt, got like an incredibly raw deal. I was pissed off even just during that train scene you mentioned, because I didn't know, I just thought we just jumped, because sometimes Saw jumps. So I was just like, oh shit, this is really happening. No, you are not gonna do Jill dirty this way. I'm pissed off. She's too strong. She's lasted through too many movies. I don't want her just like, and even though she did get to fight back a little bit, the fact that like the reason Hoffman found Jill when she finally escapes out of her cage and does the nail file in his neck, which I'm like, yes, good. This is what I want.
Again, no, she's gonna run. Okay, great.
No, she ran and she hid, and the reason she was unsuccessful was she couldn't hide silently. She had to,
Yeah.
And then he's just looking straight at her. She's not even hiding behind anything, and I'm just like, I especially for a movie that was so good as far as like its kills, like it's more exploitative, but
Yes.
or explicit moments. Like it was so good at like kind of giving me the rush. I didn't get the same rush with Jill because what would have given me the rush again? Because I'm not really a sadist. I'm more of I like the fight. I don't what is it when if you're not a sadist but you like a struggle, like you know, like the pushing and the pushing back. That's what I wanted. And I didn't get enough pushback from her, especially, okay, as she's running away and she's running all over wherever the fuck she was that they had her in the safe house. And I understand the calling for help, but the second you realize that no one's there, you stop calling for help because you realize, oh shit, the guy who's running after me, who's totally free, who I only incapacitated like once by a nail file in the neck, which would incapacitate most people in real life.
Yeah,
but because it's a Saw movie, you get we'll get into it with every one of these movies we're talking about here tonight. But people in these movies get like arteries like you know sever or cut open or whatever, and they bleed when they pull it out, maybe. And then they stop bleeding and they just move on as though they didn't just get a wound and they don't have to worry about putting on a tourniquet or anything like that. And she's so I don't know. I just wish she could have been smarter. I really like that character. I always liked the mystery around her. I wish we could have gotten more depth, but I won. And also, okay, and then that leads us to Joyce. One of the things that I didn't like about her was she wasn't angry enough for me at the betrayal from her husband. I didn't like it. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah.
And he's apologizing like, yes, I lied to you and I'm sorry, but she's not as upset for the apology that like he's giving. Like I understand that he gets that he lied to her, but she doesn't seem to be that upset.
Well, also,
but I have a problem before that though.
Whoa,
My problem is when she's first realizes where she's at.
Mm-hmm.
I can't count how many times she goes, "What's going on? Where am I? What is this? What's going on? Where am I?" And I'm like, I mean, I know he lied, but like you know what your husband wrote about.
Yeah.
You know what Jigsaw does.
Yeah.
And yet she keeps going, what? What is this? What's going on? Girl.
All it would have taken is like one knowing, like,
girl.
Oh God. You know, like for her to know where she is. Yeah.
And that's tighter, more efficient writing too. Just
yes.
But I don't get to
and then she says, "I love you." What kind of fucking doormat is this person? Like, okay, I get her kind of like rooting for him and like egging him on and you know like encouraging him like you can do this, come on, pull those chains, but I wish there could have been more of a I don't know, a clear-headedness about it, like a sensibleness as opposed to a come on baby, come on, you can do this, I love you, you can do anything, you're the man, the man.
No, you encourage him because that gets you out. And that's why you're encouraging him. God bless her. The actress, her name is Gina Holden. Mm-hmm. And I instantly went, oh, you're in a Final Destination. Yay, good for you. Yay, I like seeing these
people. Her too. Okay.
Yes. She was she dies on the coaster in 3.
Which one is she?
Like Mary Elizabeth Winstead's boyfriend rides the coaster, and then that other guy's girlfriend rides the coaster, and they become our leads. And he's like, I know you never really liked me. We really hung out.
Right.
That guy's girlfriend.
Oh my God. Okay, I totally didn't even because I was racking my brain watching. I mean, unless you have more to say about Joyce right now.
No, that was it.
Okay, cool. Because I was racking my brain looking at Lieutenant Gibson for about half the movie.
Oh yeah,
it was
Final Destination
bothering me
1.
so much, but I didn't recognize him.
Oh, the
I didn't
second he
realize.
walked on screen, the second I'm like, you're the friend with that little
Well,
voice.
your memory is better than mine. I see. The thing is, like, even the voice, maybe I think it was still there. Like once I saw him, I totally saw it because he still had the kind of the corners of his mouth pulled down, and he still kind of talked. But it wasn't to the extent of like, I better go, like in Final Destination. But
hey, maybe it's the time we get together. We can go to like a Dodgers game or something or whatever.
Yeah, right. Todd, the only Bostoner in that neighborhood and in his family. But I liked that he knows who Hoffman is and immediately suspects him, and that strikes that deal with Jill and everything like that. Like that was pretty cool. I thought he had his wits about him in a way that was watchable. Like I rooted for him in a way that, I mean, I guess because he's a good guy, but I mean, I was behind him in his pursuit. I didn't think all of his decisions were, especially as the movie progressed. I didn't think they were all kind of like the smartest thing he could do. In fact, I have a lot of questions.
He actually lost me really early on. This might be petty, Eddie.
Why?
And it's funny because sometimes petty things can trigger me.
Yeah.
He's walking through the office and he walks by like a pretty girl.
Mm-hmm.
And
he checks her out.
No, it's not that he checks her out. It's that he so blatantly has to turn his body and look down and do it. I have a real problem with guys who lack tact.
I see.
And it's one thing for a woman to feel noticed that there's a guy, but even when like her back is turned, if you're in like a work setting and shit, if you can't kind of just do like a, but you have to be like, hey. Like I get that when you're in your 20s and you haven't learned subtlety yet, but this guy's an adult. I'm like, fuck you, this clown.
I actually appreciate that that prejudice you have because it doesn't apply to me, especially like post lockdown and everything. Like if I'm out on the street and I see a guy, usually I'm like wearing a mask or something, not on the street, but I mean, like out and about. Sometimes it's in a supermarket and I'll see a guy, but I'll have a mask on. So nobody can hear me. Nobody can see my mouth move. They can totally see my eyes though.
But so they can't see you licking your lips and shit underneath.
Well, the problem is I'll usually say something like, holy shit. Like in full voice. And because it's muffled by the mask, and because he's like, probably 12 or more feet away from me, like it's not really a big thing and I can always avert my eyes, but I am not subtle these days, buddy. I'm sorry. I am.
Well, then I judge you too. I'm just saying for a man of his at his age.
Yeah.
Grow the fuck up, dude. Like that's how you look at an ass. I judge, sir.
No, I get that, and especially towards women. Like I agree. My case, it's different, but
he's part of the hetero patriarchy, and you're not. So I'll allow it.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a whole discussion. Anyway, moving on. I already mentioned Jill's nightmare. I knew that the lawyer, the publicist, and the friend were going to figure into Bobby Dagan's little, Wonderland trap, labyrinth that they set up for him. I do have to say also those traps, I liked them. I liked them all.
I appreciate simplicity for some of them. Like, here's a fucking walk on a plank.
Yes.
Guide your friend. It's like a trust exercise. Walk across these planks. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like this. Of course, the movie has that cake and eat it too thing where like every trap fucking he gets them all the way to the point where they should get out and then fuck. Oh no.
Which I'm not too upset about either. Like, I'm not rooting for any of these people to die in these traps. It's not like the white supremacist one.
We'll get to that in a moment. Yes.
Oh yeah, but watching Suzanne, Nina, and Kale. Anyway, Kale with a C.
Don't you just hate him?
Once I know his name is Kale, and he's just like a fair-haired, blue-eyed white guy. I'm just like, fuck you, get out of this movie. But I like that actor though. He was on Queer as Folk back in the day.
Okay.
He had a recurring role. He was Blake. But no, but even though I'm not rooting for them to like die in it, like I'm still just kind of like, oh shit, that fucking sucks. That felt more Saw actually than the other traps.
Here's how you know when a Saw movie's working on me is when you can actually get me to squirm a little bit.
Yeah.
And when they're pulling that fucking key out of her,
oh, the fishing hook.
When my legs are doing this, you know.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that when they finally get it, and here's what I like again, the gore in this movie, when they pull the key out.
Yeah.
There's some little meat, some little pink meat comes out with it. I'm like, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some organs came out with you.
And the fact that you're not allowed to scream while it happens, the fact that he has to keep telling her to shut the fuck up. But I understand because you're getting a fish hook pulled up your fucking throat.
And it's ripping up your chest guts.
It's terrible. Oh, it's making me scream now.
That was good stuff.
And then Suzanne with her eyes and mouth holes trap with the thing, because it's one thing to have like your eyes gouged out and everything like that, but it made me remember when the rapist guy in the hotel room, the big guy, when he was on the bed and he had to like squeeze the thing so it would like poke out his eye and then pull out his limbs and everything like that. It made me think like it's one thing to squeeze something when you know it's going to poke out your eye, but it's another when you don't need to see the thing until like it's about to happen. The fact that it is full on, it's like that's on fire in the sky,
and you can't turn your head. You're locked.
And it's going right. Oh my god! Ever since Fire in the Sky with the fucking needle and
oh my god,
as it's going in, it's just like fuck. I mean, I don't even know if you have nerves in there. You probably can't even feel it, but you can see it, and that might be worse. The psychological damage it does.
Good reference, by the way.
Thank you.
That
Fire
in the Sky
me up.
That Fire in the Sky is a drama, and then it just becomes a horror movie for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Shit. Especially if you've got like an alien, the opposite of a fetish, like aversion.
There are people who you can be afraid of all sorts of stuff. You can be afraid of aliens.
Yeah. But okay, so white supremacists.
Yes. This is something I really liked.
Yeah.
The second the scene started and they explain that you are all racist pieces of shit.
Yeah.
They don't flat out call them skinheads, but you know, they definitely sort of look like it.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, okay, see, now this is a much better type of victim than like a grieving father who isn't grieving the right way in Jigsaw's opinion, you know? This is who you should be going after. If you really want, I mean, I know you're trying to rehabilitate people, and how the fuck are you going to rehabilitate these fuckers? But if John Kramer could own up to the fact that he's full of shit and just start putting people in who kind of should be in there, you know?
Yeah.
A little bit of Dexter taking out the trash, if you will. However, this was not a John Kramer joint at all, but still, I was just so down for it. It made me want to see like a Dexter type thing. Like, what if we did a movie where the people in traps, and also these traps were like the movie has its cake and eat it too, just sort of kills everybody. What if we were all just like the shit people, you know?
Yeah.
And not, you know, like, oh, well, you know, you jaywalked that one time or whatever the fuck bullshit some of these people, you know.
Because even one of the guys says, like, you got us into this, to the main guy who's glued to the seat and everything. And I'm just like, wow, the group dynamics, sometimes even in the most minuscule point, like, I mean, we don't get much time with these people.
Right.
Which I'm kind of glad for, but also what a challenge to like make a movie that just kind of surrounds that group. That said, I don't know if I want that movie. I don't know if I want that movie because we're
not going to root for them. But when you get to Saw 7, where it's kind of leaning into the whole thing of we know what you want, we know what you're here for. When you're cheering on the kills,
this
is the type of people that you put in
Yeah.
when you're gonna make a movie where you're just kind of cheering on the kills. Whereas if you
Sure.
create a group that you actually want to see escape. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's just this
Mm-hmm.
kind of shit, yeah, give me more of this. And I
Yeah.
do find it interesting that both this movie and Final Destination, when they got to their 3D movie, cartoonishly killed like racist people.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's something about the franchise hitting the 3D point where they're like, put a racist guy in it and kill him. And you know what? If that becomes a trend, I'm here for it.
A remorseless kill. But
but the
speaking,
thing, but
yeah,
I started
yeah,
thinking during this,
yeah.
I started thinking, but why make this trap now? Like, because I couldn't help but think we open, with Hoffman
Mm-hmm.
escaping, sewing up his face, even going and like looking at like the photo
Mm-hmm.
of the writer guy. I have the hardest time with names already, and especially in the Saw franchise where like most of them don't stick with me.
No, I
But
hear you.
but the Sean Patrick Flannery character,
Right.
um, who by the way, is very happy to see him in. I'm always happy when he shows up in something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just like him. So I just couldn't help but think if I had just narrowly escaped the events of 5 and 6 and just got caught by the fucking feds
Yeah.
and managed to like stab my way out,
Yeah.
only to get caught and survive this, like I'd be on the fucking run.
Yeah.
So why stop and make more traps and do more games? Like I remember watching the Skinhead scene going, but why? Why are you sticking around doing this? And then also with Sean Patrick Flannery and this whole warehouse of traps, I'm like, why are you still doing this? It took me a while for it to click. Maybe I'm just
Mm-hmm.
stupid. Maybe there's some Saw fans out there that are like, well, here's why, you dummy. But it clicked to me when Hoffman gets out of his zip bag,
Mm-hmm.
body bag, starts stabbing every fool in the police station. And like it becomes very apparent that like not only was the skinhead car scene an event to draw away some
It
police
was
and
bait. Yeah.
create an explosion to draw away more police, but this
Mm-hmm.
other house where you've got the SWAT showing up, like you are emptying out that police station.
Yes.
But it took me, I didn't realize that until he's literally going through the police station and I'm going, I understand why you're going after Jill. I get this. Essentially, it's a rampage through the police
Yeah.
station. And cinematically, I get it, even though I don't like the character. I'm like, I kind of dig that it's like this rampage through the station.
Yeah.
But it felt so disconnected to me. I'm like, this seems like, and then I went, it's not disconnected. You're doing all this to clear out the police station. But then I just
Mm-hmm.
thought, seems like an awful lot of work just to like clear out a police station. Like you've got to record the things and set up all the traps. You've got to like if it's just an empty excuse to get them out, you could have made something more hollow, but he still wanted to do the game. Like he still had a photo of the guy. I don't know, but it is a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
just to dot dot dot.
Yeah, but I think the only thing that kind of allowed me to kind of roll with it was because it was such a personal vendetta. It felt tonally on point with this franchise. Like a lot of, especially as even with Johnny Jigsaw, as we come to uncover, even in the movies that follow this one, there was a lot of personal uh,
But
uh, uh, yeah, a lot of personal motive behind what he
but
was doing, and that it wasn't random. It made me think like, okay, so these are crimes of passion, even though Johnny Jigsaw didn't look at them as crimes per se, so much as like tests. But I
it's
think, yeah,
it's personal for Hoffman to get to Jill.
yeah,
It's not personal for Hoffman to go after Sean Patrick Flannery. He didn't write a book about
Bobby
Hoffman.
Dagan,
Yeah,
Bobby Dagan.
that's personal for Jigsaw. And at that point, since he's getting like I don't know if those photos were left for him by Kramer or if he's been doing this on his own. But if he is doing it on his own, like the flashback is to John Kramer. The flashback is like what's it to Hoffman?
You're gonna have to remind me.
Did
Do
he
we have? Yeah.
did Hoffman really buy into John Kramer's ethos so much that he would defend his honor against a guy who lied in a book? Because the flashback is to John Kramer at the book signing and clearly knowing he's a liar. I don't know.
That's another. Okay,
if he didn't survive a trap and should be running, I get why he'd be staying and doing this trap. Unless he justifies going, this will help me get to Jill.
I mean, it is a perfect diversion, like as far as like the teams that have to kind of like swarm around and infiltrate that obstacle course, as it were, because the environment, they were at a full stop when they got to the room that Kale got dropped in, because there was no safe passage and they had to go through an alternate door and try to find some way to navigate the path. So I mean, I think it was a really effective diversion, even if there was that. But that's why I want to ask you, do we have direct evidence? Because I don't remember. I've seen 3 movies in the last 48 hours, and these are usually hard for me to get all the details on point. Do we have, as far as you can remember, direct evidence that it was in fact an entire trap set, you know, like sequence of events set by Hoffman? Or is there reason to believe that like Dr. Larry, because he's the one who meets him in the group, okay, and also because he seems to have other people behind him who are defending the legacy of Johnny Jigsaw, and it made me wonder, are they the ones who set that trap and put him
prior to this conversation? Because I saw 3D 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until today when I was just sort of thinking about things where I was like, I get that Hoffman, because we flash back to Hoffman at the auto garage in his little secret thing with the skinheads. That I get. We never flash back to Hoffman setting up, you said his name, but Sean Patrick Flannery's whole storyline.
Bobby.
Abby. So this little nugget popped in my head today, which was, because that seems like an awful lot to distract cops. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is it possible that you see you call him Gordon, but isn't he Dr. Lawrence? Or is his name Lawrence Gordon or Gordon Lawrence? It's in I have the word Lawrence.
Lawrence Gordon. I call him Dr. Larry.
Yeah. Okay. I remember going, wait a minute. I don't think the movie says it, but am I supposed to posit that Lawrence set up that house and that's supposed to be the reveal that, like, obviously we flash back to his role with the key in part 2 and that he's sort of been there all along. His flashbacks don't show Bobby at all. But am I supposed to deduce that whole thing was set up by him? Because it is just sort of a side story that they don't really feature anything of Hoffman. And yet, as we were talking, is when I remembered that they show Hoffman coming back to his lair and there's a photo of Bobby. So I immediately put the Dr. Lawrence thing out of my head and went, nope, you weren't supposed to go down that avenue, because they show Hoffman looking at that photo. And that's all I need to know. That was something he did.
Debatable. It could have been on his to-do list.
No, but I don't know. That's enough evidence for me. And the fact that when they do the Lawrence reveal, considering that every reveal in every one of these movies overshows stuff that like we didn't even need to see because we just saw it 10 minutes ago, they would have showed in this franchise, they would have showed Lawrence setting these things up. That's not something they would have skipped. That they would have flashed back to the traps we saw 20 minutes ago. They would have.
I want to agree with you. That said, there are other things in this movie that don't quite make sense to me. So I'm not going to give, it's Kevin Gruter, however you say it again, directing this.
Directed 6, yeah.
Yeah, and I liked 6. But
I liked
there were
6 a lot.
But there were things about that one too that I was just kind of like, so I don't know that he's infallible. Nor are Patrick Melton or Marcus Dunstan the screenwriters. So
what I understand, Eddie, and this is the most loosest of skimming of like a headline or something.
Okay.
the director of this, after Saw 6, was gonna direct Paranormal Activity 2,
Oh.
but had like but had like a deal in his contract that the studio exercised,
Mhm.
like a clause saying, no, you're coming back for 7.
Oh.
And he was not available to direct 2. And from what I understand, he wanted to be directing Paranormal Activity 2.
Yeah.
He was contractually obligated to do Saw 7.
Oh, that's a bitch.
So maybe his heart wasn't totally in this one.
Maybe.
Um,
Especially shooting in 3D.
especially when the mandate, because that comes up from above, like, we're gonna do this one in 3D, which has its own sort of, yeah. So
yeah. Yeah.
Do you have more on that?
On that, maybe that we can come back to later, but I was going to go into the group because I like that.
Well, let me just well, while we're speaking of 3D, I just want to point out you touched upon this.
Go for it. Go for it.
So we open. We're not. I don't know if we open on the. I can't remember if we open on the kill and then flash back to Hoffman, or if we open on Hoffman and then go to the kill. But the big opening kill.
Yeah. First, we see Dr. Larry cauterizing his wound. Then we see the opening kill, and then we see Hoffman.
That's right. The first thing I noticed was that, and this isn't a bad thing, but I went, oh, it's so bright, it's so digital, and I know a lot of people were shooting on like the red cameras at the time. I don't know if this was, but a lot of it after 6 movies of high contrast, grimy, yellow, green, and brown rooms, and also warehouses upon warehouses. To not only have it be outside, but to have it just be so crisp, so just natural light.
Yeah.
Like, well, this is different.
Yeah.
Because we'll get to it later, but because there were many years between Saw 7 and Jigsaw. And when I saw Jigsaw, I remember thinking, oh, I like it. This doesn't look like any other Saw movie I've seen before. But I would also say that Saw 3D also doesn't look like any Saw movie that I just seen before. At least anytime it's not connecting a bit to the events of 6, because then they will like flash back to like Dr. Gordon in the hallway. It's from the end of 1. It's dark, it's grimy, and then we get to the TV studio. We get to the opening kill scene, and it's bright. We get to the police station, and just it's lit like a more standard procedural police station and less of a Saw police station where it's just more shadowy and more sad inside.
Yeah.
The whole finale with Hoffman in the police station is crisp and clear and bright and well defined. But then like Jill will leave the police station at night. It turns out to be a dream, but like they're trying to sort of ape the Saw look. So it's constantly going back and forth. It was just different. I'm not complaining, but it definitely had that. We saw this so much with like My Bloody Valentine 3D, with the Final Destination. There is, and it has to look, one, it's a new type of camera, and 2, the glasses act kind of like sunglasses, and they kind of tint things so things are a little bit brighter, a little bit clearer. It definitely looked like a different kind of Saw movie to me, and there's nothing necessarily bad about that because I appreciated it, especially because your eye takes a certain amount of time, of I forget how much, of like 1.7 or of a second, but like if you're watching 3D and you go from one shot to the next, you can't cut too quickly because your eye can't adjust as well in 3D, which is why the Transformer movies by Michael Bay got better as far as the way the action was shot, because he couldn't do his, and the same thing with this, which is like, this was the first movie that really stopped doing the hibbity dibbity, I'm screaming, and then like cut to this. Like it was just none of that. None of it. There's a little bit when he's got to pull the tooth out. They do it a little bit, and
I was not.
And when she's in the head trap, and you know what? If you use it sparingly, it's more effective.
Yeah.
And not just sparingly, because the previous movies would use it pretty much for every major kind of trap, But if you don't do it for every major trap, and then you just do it at like this peak of a character's struggle as he's like just pulling his teeth out, that's an effective use of shaky, you know?
Yeah,
And you only do it for a few seconds. It was nice. It was nice, Eddie.
I, I agree. I can't remark on the tooth pulling scene because I was watching on my laptop, and even that was too much for me. I was literally just kind of going. I didn't want to block the entire thing, but I just wanted to watch it through like my little hole, you know, my little hand pyramid. It's the only way I can watch, you know, like tragedy, like I mean tragedy of the body and something like that. Just like traumatic. Like I'm just going so I can just kind of pass my hands and just kind of almost see it, but not really. And I was going, oh god, and I was vocalizing the entire time. I it made me what was because I thought about other things where they make people do things to themselves and everything like that. And there was something about like having to pull your own teeth out that I don't know why that pushes such a button for me. Because it's such a specific kind of pain. And I've had teeth pulled out of my head while I'm awake, you know, like, but I'm under anesthesia, but they're still weird, and there's that sensation, and it's still scary as fuck because you're watching a hand out of your mouth go because they are yanking it out of your head. So I'm imagining that with no anesthesia, and you have to do it yourself, and you have to do it twice, and then he has to like run into the wall.
Because when you see it in movies where they just pull, even when they have to tug several times. But I realized like you can't just like if it's really, you know, if it's really in there, you have to like knock it a bit. So I love that they actually staged it with him like yeah.
I can't even talk about it. But so I could barely watch it. I knew what was going on. I'm like, okay, I get it. Oh my god, this is insane. This is really well put together, but I can't. But with the mousetrap, I didn't even actually notice that we kind of went back to a Saw thing because I thought it was effective. I thought it worked. I thought the mania and the and all that worked. To backtrack a little bit though, like another thing that I like, you know me, I mean, I love rewarding fandom and I love recognizing people, and this franchise certainly brings. Okay, when we go to that group and we meet Sydney, the woman who I guess killed her abusive family or whatever. That's all I wrote. I don't remember exactly what she did. But then I wrote opening kill of Saw 6 survivor in the group. The woman who used the cleaver, and we were like grab the cleaver to chop her hand off and everything like that. And there she is. And I was just like, damn, she's there. And I also recognized Addie, the secretary from 6, was sitting in the group. And the mom, I believe, from the end of the movie, the one who couldn't pull the switch that was going to put all the acid.
But her son did.
Yeah, but her son did.
And
so
also,
she was there.
The guy from 5.
Yeah, the junkie. I thought that was him.
Yeah, the
one who survives with Julie Benz.
Right. Julie Benz gets out of the room, and then we don't. But the door's open. So yeah.
And he's just there. He's just laying there, and they go and investigate him. And also, I thought there was one guy who I could have sworn was Brad from this movie. The one of the guys who was holding the saw in the very opening kill of this movie. So I was just kind of like, okay, good, nice integration of at least like the last couple chapters.
And I had to look it up. There's a guy in there that looked like Eric's son, but then it turns out it wasn't. But I'm like, because that would have been cool.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I would have.
He was a little too old, but like they looked very similar, and I'm like, ooh,
cool. They can bring whoever they want. But then, of course, like I remembered the moment the first time I saw it when I didn't know it was coming because I didn't know Carrie Elways was in this chapter when I first watched the DVD that I rented, and I remember just like, oh, you know, like the soap opera drama of it all, and this time I was just like, there he is with the slow clap and the cane and the look at staring daggers into, because I didn't immediately remember that this guy was a fraud. But as the seconds started to twist by, and even while he was on the Good Morning Television show and everything, I was just kind of like, I think I wrote it in my notes. I wrote something like, this guy's lying though, right?
Yeah.
I think I remember. And then when I see Carrie Elways there, I'm like, yes, he's lying, and Dr. Larry's gonna get him. This is okay, cool. I'm in. So I love that. Oh, and there was something that I was missing in the scene where Bobby Dagan, I was gonna call him Dugan, Bobby Dagan gets abducted, and it bothered me. And I'm glad that it got corrected later on in the movie, because when he got abducted, no pig mask for a change. It was just
Yep.
like it was just, I guess, I'm guessing Hoffman or someone in a hoodie, like a hooded like jacket or something. And I was like, oh God, they're really leaving that by the wayside, aren't they? And then at the very end, when they all start assembling around Hoffman and they
Yep.
got the pig masks on, I'm just going like, okay, you know what? That's a good argument for like why it might not be Dr. Larry and his minions or whatever, or his
Because they would have worn that
devotees.
mask. Yeah.
Or I mean, there's no reason to believe they wouldn't have, is the
Right.
thing. So yeah, maybe it was Hoffman. Damn, I
Um,
wanted it to be them though. It's more interesting.
Meh.
I don't like Hoffman. I don't like him. I think he's boring.
Well, I just wanted it to be
Oh,
them because it just seems like an awful lot. There's like two giant things that he's orchestrating at the same time. And it
yeah,
just seems like a bit much. On top of the
yeah.
opening kill, which I don't understand. Okay, so like the opening kill to six, which is the guy cutting his fat and her cutting her arm off,
Yeah,
right?
her cutting around you.
Okay, every opening scene 1 through 4 will feel a little random at first, but then it turns out that either the police are investigating it and it's leaving a note for someone, or it's connected to someone. That one wasn't connected to anything, but at least Hoffman goes and meets her, and she, it was a test. Like at least there's a connection, and you also see the intention that both those people, I think, were like defaulting on mortgages or something. So there's still like an intention to it,
Hmm.
thematically. This opening scene isn't connected to shit,
Hmm.
and it seems like again an awful lot of work. Besides the other two things that Hoffman is setting up, having
Hmm.
just survived all this,
Right.
um, I just I don't understand. Like that truly had no point. It was the first time in the franchise where it was just a big opening scene for the sake of it, because it doesn't connect to anything later. It isn't
Yeah.
revealed that that guy is related to this guy, or that there was a note at the crime scene for this guy to find. There's
Hmm.
nothing. There was nothing, and it's extra complicated, right? Because it's, when are you setting this up? Outside, in a glass
Hmm.
box, in public? This is a complicated setup. And if you told me that Gordon was behind that,
Hmm.
I'd believe, because the
Hmm.
movie explains how Hoffman's behind what he's behind. That scene has no explanation, but it also has no connection. It has no context. It just
Yeah.
sort of is.
Yeah. Strange. I
But
also, yeah.
I also just quite liked after that though. We get introduced to Bobby. We follow up on Hoffman. We see the skinhead attack scene. We
Hmm.
see Jill go to the police station. She has her dream, and I'm like, you're not doing that thing where we just sort of get to it. One of the things that we liked
Mm,
about six is that we got to see the insurance company for like a scene or two. It felt like like a different formula than the regular movies. It was structured
yeah.
a little bit more like a quote unquote normal movie and not just getting to the saw of it all. And this
Yeah.
movie also does that, where we had multiple scenes with Bobby. I remember thinking, is it just going to be, because I didn't remember anything. I'm like, is it just going to be Hoffman picking off people like he picked off these skinheads? And we're not going to have like a
Mm,
through line thing? And right when I
oh.
thought that, Bobby got abducted. And I went, oh, okay, there it is. Wow, they really let us have some Bobby scenes. They really let the movie have things that breathed.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I appreciated about the first act of Seven.
Yeah. Also, the obligatory, and I don't say that in a derogatory fashion, but the obligatory Tobin Bell appearance of the flashback. One thing that I loved, I just wrote, critics of this franchise complain that it's not scary, that it's just gory or that it's just violent or it's exploitative or whatever. But I'm sorry, Tobin Bell scares the shit out of me. All if he just watching him walk into the bookstore or whatever and get his book signed and question if I don't if I were signing just any book, I don't even have to be faking that I was like in a saw trap or anything like that. But if I was just signing like a book on like making bagels, and he came up and was like, "So you enjoy making bagels, do you?" I'd be like, "I'm sorry."
even with that hat and his M&M jacket, and you're just like,
Yes.
oh, okay.
It's all the demeanor and it's all the gentility. I mean, Tobin Bell is a really good actor, and he knows to go in the opposite direction and play who, what the man's life is, to play, I'm not supposed to be scary. I'm just supposed to have a motive, and I'm supposed to have a rationalization. I'm supposed to believe everything that I say. So as long as I got all that working, everything else will just fall into place. And it does. It totally does.
It's not just the demeanor and the voice, but to me, it's the gaze. It's the focus. And it's not I'm scary.
No.
But and gaze is the only word I can really kind of describe that.
Yeah.
That precise way he's, oh God. Yeah.
And I'm
not scared by it, but it's.
It scares the shit out of me. It's not overtly aggressive, and it's not meant to, it's not like attempting to intimidate. It's just confrontational, maybe. And even that seems a little too aggressive a term. Like, I think it's just direct, and that kind of Zen quality you alluded to back, I think, in movie one, that has been there throughout.
Yeah.
And that it unnerves me, and it really unnerved me in this movie, probably because I didn't remember whether he came back or not. And when he did, it was like, oh God, there he is. And I realized how much he scares me. Just hit him kind of moving into his territory and seeing through someone. And with this guy, because he really had something to see through, it wasn't like kind of like a arbitrary, well, I feel like you did something wrong, so into the trap you go. It was like, no, you're a fraud and you're lying about me. And I knew even before, I think the first time I saw it, I knew that story that he told, he's going to make it come true with the hooks in his chest and everything. Like, this is a good example for the most part of a movie that if I'm ahead of it, I'm glad I'm ahead of it, because when what I know is going to happen, it happens. Sometimes that happens in a movie where something's going to happen, and then when it happens, you just go, called it. Yeah. As opposed to, get on with it. I knew, dead people knew this was going to happen. Move on. I don't think I ever did that really with this movie. It was more like exhilarating and more like a roller coaster ride, which I appreciated.
The closest I came to it was, I forget at what scene, but it was long before it was revealed, where I'm like, I think Bobby's full of shit, right? Like, he wasn't caught by Jigsaw. This is and then when it was revealed, I'm like, yeah, that lines up. Okay.
Right.
One little thing I didn't say when we were talking about the survivors, I just want to mention this, is that they describe, some of them that we haven't yet seen before are describing like the thing they survived.
Yeah.
I don't think I was meant to laugh, and I actually had to rewind it and watch it again. But one of them, especially after all these sort of like elaborate things, this one almost felt like if he were spoofing Saw. It's these two people hanging, and there's just like a bunch of like motors spinning, or like buzzsaws.
Oh yeah. And
they're hanging above them. There's like 40 of them, and she just slaps the dude in the face.
Yes. That was Sydney, the one with the abusive husband or and whatever he was. Yeah.
I'm like, did they? Because the bars they're hanging on are like barbed.
Yeah.
But was the challenge really just like, whoever lets go, whoever makes the other person let go? And she's like, slap him in the face. Whoa! Like, he just loses grip because it was, I don't know. I just went, did we really just like flashback to a slap in the face trap? Holy shit. I
didn't think
slap face, 3 question marks. Slap face.
Not you've got about it like that,
and you have to put your fingers in, but just
right.
What do the 5 fingers say to the face?
But you know what? It's also kind of like a strange. I don't know. To me, it feels kind of informed, because it's like she finally had to choose herself over this guy who's beating the shit out of her.
They don't give me enough of that, like.
Well, she says it right after, but I mean,
and I get they explained that these are whoever falls, the other one releases a thing and you're now safe. I don't know, but it's just
what if she just had to hang there and wait for them to turn it off? Like, fuckers, I killed him. But one thing that I laughed at that I again, I didn't think I was supposed to, but it just reminded me of myself. It's when Gibson is talking to Jill. I can't remember when. Oh, I guess it's when she's in the safe house. When he first puts her in the safe house. And I don't remember what prompts it, but he just says, I knew you were crazy the moment I laid eyes on you. Crazy. And I was just like, that's what I do all the time. I love to insult people, or not insult, but accuse them of something. Like, if you were being silly, I'd just be like, look at you. You're just being silly, silly. Or if my cat's running around and being crazy, I'll just be like, look at you, Des, you're crazy. Stop being so crazy, crazy. He does almost exactly that to Jill, and it's not intended. It's not like 4 laughs. It's not. I don't know where it came from, and he even calls her crazy again a couple more times after that. I think to her face before he Augsund flourishes. You know, I mean,
you're just a doorman, 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 doorman.
Stop being so greedy, greedy. I'm not greedy. You're greedy. Look at you being greedy, greedy. And yeah, that's classic me. Yes.
Do you have other thoughts? Because I have one final thought for this one.
I already said the self-defense. You go on with yours. I'll just cross out things I've already said and try to get to.
I kind of mentioned this when we started talking about this one, but I really want to lay it home with, or lay it down, bring it home, whatever the fuck. That at the time was too enticing of an ending. That felt like the next step. When you introduced that, like, Amanda is one of the apprentices, I'm like, oh, and now we're gonna have and see what she can do. So when you find out that not only has Gordon kind of been around from the beginning and helping out, but that he's got 2 other people with him, and that now they're taking down Hoffman. I'm like, what next?
I know.
Oh my gosh, why would you end? This isn't finality. This is a new question mark. This is, and also, can we just be honest and look at the logistics of, sure, it's a nice symmetry that 1, you got Carrie Ellis back, but that 2, you're ending in the room that we started this on and kind of did the trilogy with. And at first I was like, oh yeah, that's fucked up. You took away the saw and you're just going to leave him in there to rot. And then I was like, but that's also what happened to Eric in 2. And we know that you can get out of there without a saw. You can be in there alone and break your foot and get it. Like, that isn't as damning of an ending. That doesn't feel like the end for Hoffman. I didn't see I didn't see anything. It's just, you could make a Saw 8 and Hoffman is back. And Gordon is like, there's too much there for this to be the final Saw movie. I didn't feel like a book was closed. However, watching it this time, I will admit it felt more like not like a thematic ending, but like, isn't it neat that guy from the first one, well, now he's got a cult of people and he's going to clean up this business. And maybe it's not about what's next, but like what is, and this is what he's doing. And we're just sort of closing the door and we're just going to let it be that this is Hoffman's fate. I thought, you know what? I don't need it to be as obvious of a book being closed upon second viewing. It was a pretty satisfying. If this is how it was going to end, I was like, okay, all right.
I was glad because also, I mean, Adam didn't survive in the room
exactly
from movie 1, so
Hoffman kind of being in there,
kind of 50-50 chance. I kind of hope somebody ends up in that room at some point in the Saw go. And just kind of finds like a third corpse or whatever on the floor. But and if they don't, then he'll come back, and I hope they kill him fast and he dies on screen in pain. I want it to last forever. But like it can go, it can keep cutting back to it all movie. Just go back to like him still writhing in pain, Hoffman, and just like not be dead until the very end, but then die with finality. I would like that.
Don't you think it's bullshit that like Jill gets this like, but then like Hoffman, we don't.
Yeah,
all these fucking movies with Hoffman being a piece of shit, and that's I want the Jill death for him. I got
yeah.
more out of him prying his way out of that mask in 6.
Mm. Well, oh, I wouldn't say that. No, because okay, here you're talking
his
about
face
finality.
is fucked up in 6.
Yeah.
So like, good for you.
But you're talking about finality and stuff like that, and I think because I walked into it, even though I walked into it renting a disc that I think was Saw the final chapter and not just Saw 3D.
But
I
it was
mean, come on,
marketed as the final story, though.
yeah, but come on. We're horror fans. We know better than that. We know as long as they keep making money, or as long as like there's still like a fandom.
No, but that was my problem.
You know,
was that at the time, is that correct? We know they're going to keep going, and they gave me an ending that felt like it would keep going. If they hadn't,
it didn't bother me at all. I thought that because I didn't watch the first movie, knowing there was going to be another one, that felt like finality to me, even though it was open-ended, and even though they really managed. Well, and even though they really managed after the fact to make it feel open-ended, the first movie. This one, it's just kind of like, it ended, game over, and Dr. Larry is in a position of power. I want him there. I don't want Hoffman there. Hoffman's been there far too long, longer than I remembered him being. So I am all for it. And what I would hope, actually, you know what? I want this. Okay. They bring back Hoffman. He breaks out. The hallway isn't just the hallway that you and I saw, what's his name, going through, like after Saw 2. I want it to be Detective Eric. I want it to be like tricked out and just an obstacle course of like shit he has to go through where he's gonna die. That's what I want. I want Hoffman
and it's
to open the door. And it's not a test. It's a death sentence, you know, or it's a test, but he's limbless by the end of it, or something like that. Like I want no eyes, no tongue. I want him to have to like perforate his own eardrums. I want
God
them.
Damn,
I want them to make him incapacitate himself to the point where he's a lump. That's what I want. Sorry about it.
That I
Old
get.
Testament.
No, that I get. It's just when you say perforated eardrums, it just made me sick.
I know.
No, it's funny you mentioned Old Testament, because a lot of Jigsaw's basic MO reminds me of a very biblical sense of sin. It's everything. Yeah, it's all just very. I had a lot of Catholic school flashbacks to just the last time we talked, thinking about his methodology and the idea.
Sure.
Like, humans being divine or of a divine being, but then like we sin, and so now we're like we experience pain and we're aware of things because of that original sin, and like through only through Christ can we like be purified of the pain of existence and all this shit.
Jigsaw is a religion.
So I have a question for you, but
yes,
well, I don't know if you have more. I'm ready to move
just on
whenever you are. But I have a question for you. Sure, we're both happy to have Lawrence back, simply because one, it's connected to the first movie, and two, it's nice to have Cary Elwes back.
Yeah.
But from a story standpoint, are you okay with him being back? I only ask simply because we open, with him escaping, and but we see that John Kramer takes him and takes care of him. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. Okay.
And recruits him.
Right. I get why he recruits Amanda. Yeah. She passed her test.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Larry cuts off his leg after the deadline, so he didn't pass the test. And he didn't shoot the other guy that he was supposed to, so he double didn't pass the test. And if John Kramer is so like by the book and by the rules, I'm like, sorry, you didn't pass the test. Why is he like? I get why the movie's like trying to like include Dr. Larry, but according to like the rules of John Kramer and the events of the first movie, I don't really understand why John Kramer took him in.
Because he's stronger with him than without him.
So it's a selfish thing. So fuck my rules, unless we have to.
Which we've already indicated in particular moments throughout the franchise.
Well,
there are moments where Kramer doesn't give a shit about his fucking rules.
We did a whole discussion about what a hypocrite he is. So yeah.
Yes, he's a human being. He is not infallible. I mean, even if you played by his rules, they're not infallible because you're sitting in judgment of somebody else. What gives you the right to do that? But outside of that, you have passion and you have perspective and you have allegiances to other people, like, or loyalties to other people, and mentorships and ways that you manipulate people's mind that we've seen some people believe they're thriving on and then they change their mind later, or some people like just go like, what the fuck was I supposed to learn? You know, like, I mean, it's not it's not what Bible study would have you believe it is.
Right. But, well, I mean, I don't even think I actually posited as a question, but you answered my question, which is like,
oh, good.
Are you okay with him being back within the rules of the?
Oh, fuck yes, because okay, that's another thing. Like some of these, like, and they were there the whole time, and I don't think any of them are really like deal breakers or anything. I mean,
certainly isn't though.
No, Hoffman's was probably the least interesting of all of them for me because it was just like, well, great. But seeing Dr. Larry and everything, there was something very, very satisfying. Maybe that's why the ending also didn't bother me as much, because we don't really see the recruitment. We see the cauterizing of his severed leg in the beginning, but we don't really see the recruitment until later. There's some like groundwork laid when he does the slow clap at the group and everything like that. But the fact that we find out not only is he like Johnny Jigsaw for president, you know, like now, but he has been the whole time. And it actually answered a lot of questions for me in terms of just like the surgical precision with which some of these operations or procedures would have to be performed in order for someone to remain alive in order to, you know, pass their test, you know. So
it absolutely makes, I hate to say this, sense.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it, and I like that he, again, that's one of the things. There we'll get to it, but there are some secrets that we discover about Johnny Jigsaw I'm not on board with, but this is not one of them. I'm kind of gratified and glad that Dr. Larry that's the path he took. There's nothing lost on it for me. The only other things I have to say okay, it's two things that I already kind of commented on, but just like little details. One of the things that got me the most about the teeth thing that I forgot to mention, when he extracts his teeth, Bobby, he gets to the dark blood.
Yes,
that's what got me, because red blood, it's too red, or you know, like there's blood. But the second you start getting to it, because I've seen that blood come out of me. I've been scared of that blood when I have a nosebleed and then it starts to get to the, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die, I'm hemorrhaging. And I'm not, I'm fine. It's just dark. It's just, you know, it's the blood of life, you know, precious blood. And that I see it and I see reality in that. It really makes me go, that's gnarly. So I just wanted to bring that up. And the only other little thing, okay, because I touched on it with Joyce and everything like that, it was something that did make me laugh. Because at one point she does, when she's kind of confronting Bobby about like his lying to her, it's like, why did you lie to me? I'm your wife. And I was just like, bitch, you know what I would have wanted? I would have wanted Frozone's wife from The Incredibles. Remember the way like he's just like, where's my super suit? And she's just like, why do you need to know? And he's just like, woman, tell me where my super suit is. It's just like, this is for the greater good. I am your wife. I am the greatest good you're ever gonna get. That's what I wanted from Joyce. I am your wife. What the fuck is wrong with you? That was the level of like intolerance and anger and like, you better get me out of this. Because if you don't, if I die, I'm gonna kill you. I wanted that so bad. It would have been so much more gratifying as an audience member, as opposed to it's because it's a level of earnest that's almost saccharine, and it doesn't charge anything anymore. It just kind of makes me go like, oh, bitch. Even even when you've got like the gun to your head, you can't hold this man accountable. I mean, I guess it might be more realistic because that might be the kind of person he would attract. But
Yeah, no,
it's
it
not
definitely felt
gratifying.
like the writing, no offense to the writers, but it felt like the writing where the mindset was like he's our protagonist and then she's the girl, the
Yeah,
girl in the scene instead of again when organically any real wife finds that out, that scene plays out very differently. Even under that duress, then that duress fuels
yeah.
a rage. Yeah, you're
He has
absolutely
a
right.
right. Joyce has a right to be more interesting than that, and I don't. I don't know if Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan uh, have wives or have. I mean, I don't, but or a significant other. But I know that if I'm going to
Right.
write that scene, I'm going to have like statistically 51% of that audience is probably going to be women.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I want to give them something to just be kind of like exactly,
the
you know.
older I get, the more I become aware of like the idea of how many times like women will have sat in a movie and seen like their representation on screen so underwritten
Mhm.
and how much media they consume where like the
Yeah,
girl or the wife is just sort of in support of uh
yeah,
very
but
aware of it and I absolutely am aware of it in this one.
yeah, but those are the things that affected me, and ultimately, I walked away from this going, it was a good time. I had fun with it. I would watch it again.
Yeah, it's not as rich of a Saw story as surprisingly like 5 and 6 really surprised me how much I like them.
Yeah,
But it's more of a hoot.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
it
And
goes
that's
down
okay.
easy. It goes down
Especially
easy.
for
Yeah,
number 7, you're
yeah,
allowed to be a hoot.
right. It's like a high kick on the way out, just kind of like, and there you go.
Yeah,
Later.
just chat 2K. Like,
Exactly. And
and
that brings us.
and then
Yeah.
7 years later, there was Jigsaw, which look at your face already. Okay, holy shit. Um, you know what? You go because you've got a face. You've got a what my old teacher used to call a boo face. And
I
and
got a
and
big old puss on my face.
yeah, and if we
Uh,
were given her attitude, she'd say, "Don't give me that boo face." Uh,
well,
so
I'm a boo you.
so lay it on me, Eddie. What do you think?
Okay. Two words come to mind that kind of encapsulate all of this movie for me.
Okay,
And I mean broadly, broad strokes. We'll get into it, but missed opportunities.
okay.
Um, I just broadly, I remember going in like before I went, I'm like, what do I didn't see it. This was my first time seeing it, but I
Hmm.
remember going in. I started you start to recall things, and then as you move through it, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, people said this, and I remembered kind of the tidbits that I got from people who had seen it, the buzz around the movie when it was out, was that it wasn't. It basically didn't need to exist, and it never. It's almost like you feel like you're kind of waiting for the movie to show you, like this is why this exists. This is why this movie needs to be part of this saga, and it never did that for a lot of people, and it didn't really do that for me either. Um, I was intrigued from the get go, just with the music pumping in the very beginning. I was just kind of like, oh fuck, it's like saying, yes, Saw is back, get back into it,
Hmm.
bow, bow, bow. Boom, 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 and I'm just like, oh, cool, yeah, let's do it. And then the whole thing with Halloran and Edgar Munson, yeah, and all of that, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm intrigued. Okay, Halloran's an asshole, got it. How long until we realize that Halloran isn't responsible for any of this? You know,
Wow.
I like almost instantly. I was just kind of like, okay, they're gonna think he's doing this, and he isn't.
You're
He's an
right.
asshole, but
I,
he's not this.
I'm
So
never convinced that he was behind it.
no,
No.
not at all. I did wonder if Eleanor was behind it a little bit toward the middle. The other doctor, the redhead who's
Oh yeah.
got all the traps and shit.
Yeah. No, but my only look, I'm
Yeah.
actually her name's Hannah Anderson. I am a fan.
Uh-huh.
Her character's too much of a red herring for
Sure.
you to legitimately consider her.
Well, because if you reveal that she's in on it, then there's no her.
Well,
There's not gonna.
yeah. Well, no, not even. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's which is fine. I never actually seriously considered her because she was just too much that it would. Yeah. Even
Yeah.
when Halloran and the other guy, like when the real guy, escapes,
Yeah.
and then or not escapes, but like Halloran gets out and gets stabbed, and you realize that like she's the only one that could have stabbed them, and then he stabbed him with the needle, and you realize, well, no, it was the other guy.
Right. Right.
I never once believed it was her. Yeah, but I do like her and stuff. She's in the Purge TV show.
Ooh,
I
I
like
gotta
I
watch
like
that.
I like when actors dip their toes into more than one horror thing. And
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
So,
because there's another one
but
in this. Oh, sorry.
no, you go ahead. I'll come back to
There's
you.
another person in this who has dipped her toes in more than one horror thing, and I'm really, really grateful for it. And that's Laura Vandervoort.
Who I just adore in general.
I fucking love her. Okay,
I know you do.
So
I know you
because she first came into my gaze because of Smallville.
Yep.
Yeah, she. Oh, I love her. 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 And and then I saw her probably about 2 years ago. I can't remember. Maybe it was three. Went to this like small, like little indie theater with my sister, and we watched this movie Rabid.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my god, and she is phenomenal in it.
Yep.
I would encourage everybody watching watch Rabid. The ending, yeah, but the whole movie, the experience is great, and she is amazing. I fucking love her. Fucking love her. Fucking love her. And didn't recognize her at first with the bucket on her head. I actually was disappointed when the bucket came off because I heard the voice talking and I thought, and because she was the smarter one, she was just like, said there must be bloodshed. And she's the first one to go and like shed her blood like on the blade and everything like that. And I was like, is that Julie Benz?
Oh.
I thought they brought her back. And I thought, because it sounded just like I said, kind of, like that high voice. And when she went, and I'm like, and if she's already been through it, then maybe I hope it's Julie Benz. And then she took it off and I didn't recognize her right away. And I was kind of like, oh, that's not Julie Benz. Ah, fuck this. It's Laura Vandervoort. And then I was like, and I love her. And I thought she did incredible work. Actually, she's so watchable.
She's great, but also just the basics of how they wrote her character, where well, first of all, I like her instantly because one, she listens, deduces, figures it out, and then tries to help people.
Mm-hmm.
But what sold me on her was when the guy calls her honey and she's like, my name's Anna. And I'm like you tell
Me too.
him. You correct that shit now. Even if you aren't in a game of death, you correct that shit now. But especially, but I just appreciate anyone who's helpful, who is thinking not just of herself, but of the group. Mm-hmm. And also just that mentality of like, he called it a game. Yeah. It's like, well, that means that we can win. And I'm like, maybe one of my favorite protagonists in this whole fucking series.
I get that.
More of her in shit.
I know. Yes, I agree. Yeah. I agree 100%.
In fact, I would also go as far as to say one of the things I liked about this movie, because it sounds like I like this movie a little more than you. And as usual, it comes down to like direction choices. But and less to do with maybe the script or specifically where the story in general,
like the trajectory of the characters and what it's like to spend time with them and stuff like that.
Not even the specifics of this character, but like from a bigger standpoint of like, this is where we went with the series. But but I can get over that if as long as you deliver for what you decide to do. And even though this is what I necessarily wanted, I still mostly think they delivered with what they ended up deciding to do. We'll get to that. But I would say that even though I really appreciated like the medical insurance of 6 and and people who burn down, these kind of bigger sins,
Mm-hmm.
these people that are in positions of power, people who are defaulting like mortgage shit.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And in the following movie, we're gonna get specifically crooked cops. But
Mm-hmm.
in this one, it took me back a bit to like this guy when he was a teenager was responsible for his friends dying in a car accident. Like this girl lied about killing her kid. These are all civilians,
Mm-hmm.
not people in power, not people who
Mm-hmm.
are able to manipulate and pull strings.
Yeah.
Just fucking ordinary schmoes, just like a junkie who stole someone's purse. And the idea of like that could be me in there, that these are all basically normies
Mm-hmm.
in a way that like I haven't felt about the franchise in a while. Um, you know, uh, I don't even know if Lee Winnell's character really did he commit a sin in Saw so much as there's the photographer that's working with the cop. Let me put him in the room, but like I don't know, you spy on people, you're a bad guy. I don't know, but
I
there's
thought that was the angle, was that he was, yeah,
you're sleazy. You
yeah, which
sleuth
is
on people for
odd.
money.
Which
But
is
this,
odd because,
but
yeah, go on.
I just really appreciate the idea of like
Yeah.
somewhat normal Joes being judged not for being in power, but being judged for like accidents, like shit, or not even accidents,
Being shitty people.
but being shitty like normal people doing really and like Anna,
Mm.
like it's easy to say like she purposefully neglected and killed her kid, but like you also see like what a wreck she is. I'm not saying it's right, but she wasn't like fuck my baby. She was like not in a good place. And this one guy's the back seat of a car that, oh fuck. And then my friends, like, I don't know. It's just it's I don't want to say it's tragic or even scary, but I definitely found it interesting that these people were so pedestrian and getting this level of judgment for their shit, considering the level of non-pedestrian other victims have been.
Okay.
Yeah,
I felt,
kind of scary.
no, first of all, when they first got revealed, like all in a row with their buckets on their heads, I was just like, another fucking group. Jesus. Um, it didn't necessarily continue to play out that way. Thank God Laura Vandervoort was there. But that's the thing. It's like she was also, as much as she was like a saving grace and a beacon for me in this movie, as I think that character is kind of supposed to be ideally, and she delivered. The rest of the characters, I didn't get to know enough about Mitch.
Was he the Van Peebles?
He's the one with the motorbike and yeah, going down the spiral and getting
Yeah,
all shredded up and
looks
everything.
just like his dad, his grandfather. Yeah,
Right. And I don't even remember their names. I just watched this and I don't
but
remember any of their
shitty
names.
fat white guy.
Yeah. Whose name I have. I think it's Ryan. Is he Ryan too? I don't remember.
But he does a
Anyway,
good
that
job
guy.
playing such a shitty guy.
He's Ryan. He's Ryan. He's also a Ryan. There was a Ryan in the last movie. There's one in this one. So this Ryan, um, I that dilemma. Okay, that whole dilemma of him like falling through the floor and like then the wires get around his leg and everything like that, and there's a tape underneath the thing, and they play it, and he's just like, and it's like, okay, you knew if somebody fell through that like I guess they'd have to find a tape, they'd have to play it, but then later on, when they're inside the silo, um, Mitch and Anna,
Yeah,
there's a tape in there that they play, or maybe I don't remember, or maybe I can't remember where it is, but there's something that plays. Oh,
yeah,
I
they
think
have to
it's
reach up.
the remote, and they play it. And he starts talking about how Ryan has to make a decision whether he wants to pull the lever to like let them out or not. And I'm just like, okay, wait a minute. This is getting ridiculous. How did you know that Ryan was going to be the one to fall through the floor? How did you know that he was going to be that? And how did you know that both at this point that Mitch and Anna were going to be the only survivors, or that they would both be alive at this point? They'd both be in the silo, and that they would have to count on Ryan to pull the thing to let them. It's speaking to what's happening exactly, but these are like pre-recorded messages, and unless somebody's like, piping it in like live, like a feed, but I didn't get any kind of indication that that's what was going on. So it just pulled me right out of it. I was just like, this is stupid. It hasn't been thought out properly. I mean, we've stretched it. We have definitely
Eddie.
we've definitely crossed the line in the past, but I wasn't having enough fun to kind of let it go. I was just kind of like, if you're not even going to give any thought to this, I'm not.
I see your point. And I thought that while I was watching the silo sequence too.
Yeah.
However, I've had that problem in the past. And they seem to have no problem writing the most bullshittiest hand-wavy dialogue. I might still even have those stupid lines written down somewhere. But you know what I mean? John Kramer was essentially a psychic who knew exactly who would survive from one movie to the next and have a tape waiting for them.
Right.
So it's par for the course for this franchise, and for you to have a problem with it now?
Yeah.
No, I've had a problem with it since 3. So like,
no, but see, in 3, because I like 3. I had a good time with 3. 3 was satisfying, and 4 was satisfying. We went over this. 3 and 4, deeply satisfying for me, especially considering what I was expecting to get, and I'm just kind of like, awesome, doesn't bother me because I'm having fun. I was not having fun. There was another one with this one. I just wrote, so I got that. I covered that. But the other one, how did Johnny Jigsaw know that Mitch, at that point, I think it's when he's about to go down into the turbine and everything. And I just wrote, how did Johnny Jigsaw know Mitch still hadn't admitted what he had done yet? How do you know that? How do you know to pre-record a message and that Mitch didn't just tell them? I mean, and even if you reason it like, well, he could have, like, when they all were supposed to like say what they did and everything like that, he could have like recorded it and then placed it. But the thing is, you have to place it in the room and leave at some point, and then they have to go in. What happens if Mitch, right before he gets into your little thing, admits what he did and then plays the tape and says, "You have not yet admitted what you did." So now and I'm like, oh, egg on your face, Jigsaw. Maybe you're not so. And I see, I shouldn't be thinking about that. And if I'm having fun, I'm not going to give a shit. Or I'll think it, and I'll just be kind of like, how the fuck did he know? And I'll just roll over it. And I've done that. But it was irritating me because there wasn't. Because also this one was the one I noticed where these folks in this movie really don't bleed. Oh my God. First of all of them cut themselves on the blade and everything like that. None of them have to do anything to cauterize or bind it or stop the blood flow or anything. And then they get shot, and then this happens, and they're all fine. They're all just moving around.
Especially
not
after the gore fest of 7. When you watch them like a day apart and not 7 years apart. But I just sort of accepted that because 7 felt gorier than the other one. So I just felt like that was a choice for that. And this is just the direction of this one, they don't need to lean in to the gore to either shock or provide fun. This is not not a thing we need to do with this particular movie. And considering the Spirit brothers certainly don't have to lean into that in Daybreakers or Predestination. That's right. I mean, Undead, it's a zombie movie, so there's certainly a level of gore, but that's never been a thing that I go, oh, the Spirit brothers.
No, not at all.
I go, Peter Jackson, holy shit. There was a certain point where before Lord of the Rings, we said Peter Jackson's name, or before Heavenly Creatures.
Right. Incredible. Oh, I gotta rewatch that movie, but I never want to.
So yeah, I didn't it's worth revisiting, Eddie.
It is, but dear God, trauma.
No, the level of gore that we got in this, I was fine with.
Sure. I would have liked more.
Yeah.
And some actual like real like color. I think also there were some things just logistically beyond just the wounds not needing to be dressed or even addressed, and they just keep going on. They start calling each other by their names. I don't remember them ever introducing themselves to each other, and I was just like because they all start calling the junkie girl Carly. Do they? Because I didn't. Okay, I must have. been looking at something else. I don't know.
I could have sworn when they get out of the first room and they're into the barn where
they all say their names.
I'm pretty sure they do.
Okay, because they were all calling her Carly, and I was like, when the fuck did she say her name was Carly? I didn't. I'm trying to and I'm listening to try and get names, but I guess maybe I looked at something else then. I don't know.
What's his name? Is it Ryan, the shitty guy?
Ryan's the shitty guy.
Yeah, he at least does a very good job of playing that type. Where if you're when you have a group of people, and then there's this dynamic, like this guy who still kind of has his wits about him to a certain degree to like put people down or make certain kind of jokes, and takes it upon himself to inject this girl. At least Anna had the appropriate response to him. So yeah, I was fine with him getting his leg trapped in there. Also, in the second room, when the chains start pulling them, I love that like Anna like throws the chain around the post and tries to like brace herself against the.
Oh,
I'm like, yes, think your way through some of this shit.
But then,
yeah, I know, but still, at least you tried. Like, I really like Anna.
I do too.
And then we talked about this before, so I'm going to come back to her. Hannah Anderson, who played Eleanor, who was the Jigsaw fan. It didn't. I like this, and then I still like it, but here's my little complaint following my compliment, which is I'm watching her, and she's and what's the cop's name? He's able to pick up on the fact that Detective Halloran, she's a little dark,
a little bit of a freak.
She probably, I don't think they were popular then, but she definitely would have been listening to some serial killer podcasts.
Sure, totally.
And when we get to her place and you see like this museum of Jigsaw shit, I go, okay. And then you listen to her talk, and then and the way that the movie is treating her, and the way Halloran is treating her interests, I'm like, oh, I see you, movie. She's a Saw fan. I don't mean she's a fan of Jigsaw the Killer. You're doing a nice little meta joke. She's a Saw fan, and she knows the history of this franchise.
Right.
That's fun. Are you making? And then I'm like, oh, but am I supposed to be agreeing with Halloran? Like, are we judging her? Are we making fun of her? Are we looking our nose down at her? No, I'm not. But he is. But we're also not celebrating her and also celebrate. I just realized it's a neat idea until I realized you don't really have much to say.
Yeah, it just kind of acknowledges that she exists.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
It includes her.
It would have been cool, though, if there was a point and you had a meta statement to say besides just a meta idea.
Oh, my God.
I do like that idea. I just wish there was more to it.
You just made me think like that's one kind of asset that Human Centipede had in its second movie over Saw in its eighth, where because there's a fandom, there is something talking about the kind of person who would watch the Human Centipede in the Human Centipede 2 and what he does to try and replicate it and everything like that. It's definitely like a thumbs down. If it's a commentary, if we're taking it as a commentary of who is going to be attracted to that kind of content and for what reasons. But at least it's a point of view. This, it doesn't really give her a point of view. It just kind of includes her. It's just kind of, I didn't think about it that way. That's interesting. And its lack of interestingness. I did write after fucking Ryan's leg nub was a thing, when he finally got a Saw thing, I just wrote, so this is all bait for Halloran. And then the movie goes on. And then at the 55-minute mark, for the first time, I think that's when they start to suspect within the body of the movie that it's Halloran. And I just wrote, how much longer before we find out Halloran isn't behind any of this? And then literally 5 minutes later is when Johnny Jigsaw comes back, or, he didn't, or I don't know what the fuck it means. He comes back because why? Because he does. And he got the wrong prognosis or whatever because the things were switched. And what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means for. Okay, wait. So then, when is all this happening? Is this how happening? Like after he died in three and that? Because they all think he died, so it is. But then, well, then what was with the oxygen? And what was with everything? I mean, was he just faking it? Did he find out that they fucked up the charts, and then he thought, well, I'll just let people believe that I think that I'm dying, and then I'll fake my own death, and then what the I don't
Eddie,
like it.
Eddie.
I thought it was stupid, simplistic, and I hate it. Yes.
Are you recounting how you felt at the time or how you feel now? Do you still not know where in the timeline that fits?
Where is it? Where?
Like, this is before Saw 1.
With the 5 people in the buckets. Okay. Then wait. Wait. If this is before Saw 1, when he's there and alive, why is he going on about a misdiagnosis like his cancer was never a thing? Because if the charts got switched.
Oh, well, the charts being switched is considerably before 1.
So he got cancer later?
It was deemed inoperable by Dr. Larry because it was too late.
Because they missed it.
They caught.
I did not get that.
By the time he's seen Dr. Larry, he'd already seen other doctors.
It had metastasized, and it was too. Okay, okay. The fact that I need you to explain that to me, it did. The way it was presented, I was sitting there. Maybe I was too checked out.
Maybe.
And also, I do have to point out, this is the only movie. I started watching it last night. I was like, oh, shit. And I just turned it off. I just went to sleep.
Wow.
Ran it back like 5 minutes, sat down begrudgingly this morning, and started running it from 5 minutes where I cut off. I thought I went far back enough. Maybe I didn't. But Jesus Christ, it was so. Okay.
Yeah. No, if he hadn't fucked up the labels, they would have caught the
cancer in time
much earlier. Yeah.
Okay. How? Okay. Then question.
Yeah.
So his cancer X-ray versus Joe Blow's, a typical X-ray gets swapped. Joe Blow then gets diagnosed with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
When do they find out that Joe Blow doesn't have cancer?
Right.
They start creating it. What the fuck?
Hypothetically, they would have done more and then been like, oh, hey, you don't have it.
Exactly.
And instead of going, oh, it's a miracle, or oops, someone would have said, well, let's look at that chart. That chart isn't, this shows a thing. You don't have a thing.
So even with your explanation.
Point, they would have, yes.
Yeah. So even with your explanation, it doesn't make any sense. So it's still stupid. It still doesn't hold water.
Eddie,
I think it's bullshit.
They can make a Saw 9 that goes back and explains that.
I hope they don't. We'll wait to discuss the future, but I thought that's another thing. It just didn't grab me. Like, did you think it was interesting? I did.
Yes. The first time I saw it, and still now, I definitely like this movie more than you. First of all, the twist worked the first time I saw it, where I'm like, wait, how the fuck is? Tell me how you really feel. Don't hide it.
Please go on.
I was definitely confused when Jigsaw showed up because I didn't know that we were playing on 2 different timelines.
Right.
And I'm like, I just wanted to know, like, what? I'm like, I know he's not back.
Right.
He can't be, but I'm like,
no.
But I just kept leaning in going, what is, like, tell me how this is happening. I need to know now. How is this scene happening in the context? I need to know the answers.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then when you find out, okay. I thought it worked, especially once you realize the 2 timelines. And for the most part, I kind of called bullshit on the idea that besides Amanda, and besides Hoffman, and besides Dr. Larry,
yeah,
There was another person? Like, that's kind of bullshit,
Yeah,
kind of a cop out.
yeah,
But it also,
kind of.
but I also buy it in the sense that Dr. Larry wasn't around the whole time. Dr. Larry was called in when Jigsaw needed him to help out.
Right.
So he's only there a little bit. And then he's off living his fucking life. And then it's like, oh, I need you to sew this guy's eyelids shut. Oh, okay, yeah. Then back to living my life.
He's not like Amanda. He's not
He's
like
not Amanda.
He's not a protege.
And so neither is this guy. And if this was the first time I saw it, I would be kind of more like, huh? But I'm like, oh no, he's Dr. Larry. Like, I feel, because, and also at first I was like, Jigsaw changed his mind and set him free. What? And then I'm like, oh well, I guess, because they say specifically like he shouldn't have to pay, he shouldn't have to die for this mistake. It was a mistake.
Yeah, I got that. That made sense to me.
That actually, I'm like, no. What? But then what really made sense to me was the idea that no, it wasn't just like, oh, I had second thoughts and I went in and just took him out of the room. It's when he realized that he like drugged him too much. Everyone
Yes.
else
Yeah.
woke up and he didn't.
Yeah.
Like, oh fuck, this guy.
So he
this guy
couldn't make the choice.
This guy doesn't
He
have a
couldn't.
choice.
Exactly.
And by that sense, he shouldn't die.
Yeah.
For his mistake. Got it. Okay.
I like that. I like that.
I like that. And I also like the idea of them, like they show them like engineering together. And I'm like, okay. And he made the bear trap. And I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, they don't give us much explanation, but like there seems to be a little bit of this. But there was like a period of time where John Kramer needed him.
Mhm.
And I buy it. And that was like a moment in his life. And that was a moment in the Jigsaw sort of plan.
Mhm.
You know, prior to the guy in the barbed wire,
Mhm.
prior to the bathroom, this guy was
Mhm.
around for stuff, and I'm fine with it. It was something that didn't need to be introduced. I I don't need it, but I also don't
Mhm.
call bullshit on it. But it does seem to be a case of like, if you were going to make this Saw 8 a year after Saw 7, this is not the story you would have made.
No,
This is a product of, it's been 7 years. Maybe it's we can't get the whole gang back together. Maybe it's a case of wanting to do something kind of different, a reboot quel where it's still an in-canon sequel, but shit, maybe like we're trying to draw in a new audience, and we know the people who saw 1 through, there's a generation of people who didn't see 1 through 7 and won't know what the fuck Saw 8 is.
Mhm.
7 years after Saw 7.
Mhm.
We can't just pick up where we left off. There's a million reasons why they could have gone in this direction. I remember at the time feeling like the way Saw 7 ended, I'm already not happy with getting this, because I would just want you to pick up from the threads of 7. Give me Dr. Gordon. Like,
Mhm.
did Hoffman escape or not? I wanted to
Mhm.
see like Gordon being the new Jigsaw and finding out who those other 2 people were. Is there a cult?
Mm.
How do they operate? And to go this route, at first I wasn't satisfied, but I thought it told its story well enough that I had a good time, and it connected enough. There was a path and it's over here, and it connected enough that I'm like, okay, I buy this as a Saw 8.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's not my favorite, but I definitely, yeah, you're shaking your head.
No, because this is the thing. I hear everything you say, and I can see where you would see it that way. That's cool. I don't agree because I was more satisfied with the ending of 7 than you were, and because also you just kind of combed in another Johnny Jigsaw, for president, supporter who dates back to the beginning. So I have an attachment to him and felt like kind of like one of the most rounded, perfect kind of like, look who else has been in on it and who was there behind the scenes when you didn't see him, that I thought worked incredibly. It'll be interesting to revisit this franchise again in some time and see, does that really work? Like, can I imagine, that he's there at all of these times? That it would be really cool. So you give me that, and then you move me into another movie and introduce an all new character who was there even earlier than Dr. Larry, who I don't care about either. And then you just kind of like make him essentially, at least as far as this movie is concerned, it's not like, and now we have a new Jigsaw. But I mean, he basically is, because he's the one putting forth the present day thing.
Yep.
And I just don't, I can't bring myself to care about it. It felt lame, and it felt it felt so removed from everything else. It did feel tacked on to me. It did feel, and also again, I felt like it didn't know what to do. Like, should we go back, and because we're not shooting it in 3D, should we go back and make it, like grimier and give it like that saw finish, or should we kind of like start a new era? And even maybe pick up on like, the cleaner look of like, the seventh movie. I don't know. I didn't like, there's so much I didn't like about this movie.
Wow. Because one of my favorite things I liked about it is how it doesn't look like the other Saw movies. Like, I instantly was like, well, thank you, Spierig Brothers, for not doing and
no, I felt like the spirit.
I liked the new setting. I liked that it was in a barn and not a grimy warehouse again.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Oh,
one of my most laughable lines of the movie. Eleanor is driving Dr. Logan to the farm, and she's like, "This farm was in Jill Tuck's family, Jigsaw's wife." And I'm like, okay. At this point, I was just like, we all know, we don't need you.
My God, it's been 7 years.
I don't care.
I was fine with it. I believe
I thought it was sloppy and stupid, and it made me roll my eyes. I couldn't even laugh at it.
Wow.
I was just kind of like, oh God.
Didn't even register as a problem to me. It was a line. I took the information. The scene went on.
If you don't know who Jill Tuck is, then you shouldn't be watching this movie. And I'm just, my Old Testament, sorry. But just like fire and brimstone.
Okay.
Watch it from the beginning like you're supposed to. But I also, okay, you mentioned something about Anna and her murder baby and her suicide husband and everything, and about making these people like, more
they made
accessible
mistakes,
or whatever.
But they weren't evil.
Okay, that said, then why is there that shot of her after she, like, she kills the baby, she smothers it, she puts it on her husband, he sleeps with her, and then she lets him have the blame, and they even have a shot of her standing there as they're cuffing him and taking him away, and she looks like the evil queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. She's got like a red halo of light on one side, and she's just all,
she's pretending to be upset about, how dare my husband kill my baby. Nobody's
looking at her. They're making her look villainous because she's a villainous woman who did an unimaginable act, and that doesn't make it accessible to me. Even the way it was introduced with her just sitting there going, "Stop it! Shut up! Stop it! Stop it!" I was just like, "Whoa! Wait! What?" There is nothing about this character that they've laid the groundwork for here in this barn that has kind of like let me know that she is the kind of person who can be driven to do something like this. And I'm not saying she needs to be snapping at people every hour where I'm just kind of like, wow, you could kill a baby. But I thought she was so cool.
Eddie,
so
she's much
badass.
calmer now, There's I mean, problem solved, right?
I fucking hate you. That was good. That was good. But it bothered me. I wish you'd been sitting next to me, because you would have made this movie more fun. I should have watched this with you. I would have had a lot more fun.
You would have understood the fucking time frame.
Okay.
If I was there to help.
And then I would have understood it. I would have been like, well, that's stupid too. And we would have paused the movie. I would have had an argument about it.
They talk about how the blueprints for the giant tornado were for something
I
pre-Saw 1,
know.
and then you
No,
see
I
it, and
know.
then
I
the timelines
know.
line up, and it's pre. Okay.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
kidding.
it's great. Yeah, it's ideal. It's perfect.
No, I'm
Okay.
just saying, like, the
I'm
facts
just
were there.
being
That's all.
I'm just being a shit. But
Yes, you
okay.
are.
Yeah, I am. Okay.
Uh,
Also, this bothered me. This fucking bothered me. The script, it was even written in the script for us to think this is a lot better than it is. And it was the fact that Hannah and Ryan are put in the fucking room with a fucking gun, and there's Jigsaw setting up and going like, this might seem like a simple trap, but the best ones are. And I'm like, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're not. You put a gun in between two people, and I do have a question for you because I saw this coming. I don't know, maybe a good 60 seconds before it happened, maybe more. How long before you knew that she was going to shoot the gun at Ryan and that it was going to shoot her because that's the way it works in these
yeah.
Jigsaw traps?
Um,
Like,
no, I definitely saw that coming.
that was a case. Yeah.
I
Sorry,
didn't
go ahead.
see that the keys were in the shell,
No, I didn't see that either.
but I definitely knew that gun was going to go off into her face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a Saw movie before.
Yeah. So, and that was one of those things where I mentioned in the last movie, something happens that you see coming and you just go, call it. That happened. And I was just kind of like, what were you hoping to achieve? Like, is that supposed to impress me?
Or
I'm
surprise
bored.
me. Yeah.
I'm bored. I was angry. When the credits rolled, so did my eyes. I was done. I was nervous to go into the next movie. I have nothing more to say about Jigsaw. It's up to you if
I
you
have
have
one
anything
little
more.
thing, and I already know you're not like it's something to be agreed with, but I definitely know you don't feel me. But it was like this little moment where I've already forgot her name, but you know, the Saw fan.
Eleanor.
Yeah, Eleanor gets in the car with our main guy who turns out to be the killer. You know, Logan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's like they're getting in the car to leave, and they play the Saw theme as like a slow piano.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking about these connected little parties about how like Logan's wife's death is connected to Halloran, and how even though the other Saw movies have been like cops chasing down this guy, something about this just felt a little like more intimate as a story as far as the network of characters. Like it was 7 years removed, so it was kind of allowed to just sort of be like a smaller tale. And I just sort of, I don't know, there's just like a lot of little scenes where I just lean in and I go, I like this movie more than you. I just do.
You definitely do.
And a lot of it just comes down to the fact that like it's shot better. Like every scene doesn't give me like there's scenes that don't give me editing headaches, and everything isn't, you know, you know, at some point, I didn't mention this in the other ones, but I think it was Saw 4 or 5. There's a room that like I just was very aware of, like, well, there was a brown wall and they painted it to look rusty and they added some goop to make it look goopy, and like every warehouse is gross and goopy, but like this was nice. This was different. One little thing, and then I'll end. One little thing that kind of would have made me go, if I only noticed it on the second viewing, but you know, the idea that, you know, all the barn stuff is flashback, all the cop stuff and the mortician people is current. The and the way it works is like the opening room scene happens, and then we cut to, well, not cut to, but then we have that body with the bucket head hanging, and the idea is that when they progress from each room, someone's going back in there and taking the body out, doing something with it.
Mm-hmm.
When they leave the second room with the purse snatcher in it, and they go into the silo room with the hole in the door, you know, with the guy, you know, gets his foot in there.
Mm-hmm.
They look outside and they see that it's still daylight. We then cut to the police station and the jumper, and we're meant to believe that it's the purse snatcher who jumped.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back to the silo, and there's still light coming out the window. And if I had been more attentive the first time I saw this, I would have thought, hey, wait a minute. You can't go from day to night to day. It's two different timelines.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But upon further scrutiny, I will also say that when they first look out the window, there's such harsh shadows against the trees that you could tell that the sun is setting. And also, when you cut back to them, it's like a harsh yellow light, as if there's like a light on the outside of the building creating a harsher yellow light. So what I'm saying is, I'll allow it.
All right. I do have to say two things I like.
Oh, okay.
Minuscule, but one of them I did appreciate when what the fuck is her name? The purse snatcher. Carly. When Carly, I liked her death while it was going on, and she had the syringes injected into her neck. Because also, I was still kind of in it at that point. I was still kind of like, bitch, you know which one to choose. It's the one that means something to you.
Right.
And if you follow the rules, then you go blah, 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 blah. And she hadn't learned, and I just thought she was stupid. So I was already starting to get frustrated with her. And then I knew he was going to have to like inject all three. So when they revealed it, and then you start to see her with her and everything, and it was the blood in the eyes and everything. Oh, it was gnarly. It was gross. I loved it. So that was cool. And Mitch was hot. That's all I can say.
Well,
like I was just like, well, he's on screen.
I'll say it again. Nice. He's a Van Peebles.
Yeah.
And they're not ugly. But I do agree with you though. Like if Ryan hadn't gone towards the door and dropped his foot in the thing,
yeah,
and then they'd gone inside the silo, would they even know like what the fuck lever is he talking about? Because I haven't created a hole in the ground to reach a
right.
But we've talked. But it's certain things can carry me through, and also certain things can pull me out. We were very aware of the things that were in this movie that would draw your attention to them, so you weren't allowed to have fun and overlook them. And also the things that I liked. Sometimes you can just get by with. I'm easy sometimes. You can shoot something and light it better, and it might carry me through.
I haven't seen Winchester yet, but I know the Sparrow brothers did that, and yeah, that face. Dude. Everybody makes that face.
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, so this isn't like a Predestination or even a Daybreakers for me. This is more like a Winchester. And the same thing with the screenwriters, Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger. This isn't a knock on that at them, but here they're handling like a Saw story, and they did Piranha 3D and Piranha 3 Double D. So
okay. And
I had more fun with Piranha 3D than I thought I would. Still haven't seen Double D, but
it's not as good.
When you tell me those guys are going to write a Saw movie, I don't go, oh, shit, really? I go, okay, let's see how they do. And then I watch it, and I was just kind of like, I watched the whole movie like this.
Oh, it's just unfortunate that even though I do consider it a Saw 8 because it isn't a reboot and it isn't totally removed, I do wish still that we had like a follow-up to 7 Part 8 and not what I feel like was maybe a studio or producer idea of like, well, it's been 7 years. We can't just pick up from there. We have to kind of find a new way in. And I'm like, no, you could have.
No. There's a way.
If anything, you tell a new story, but your way in isn't a John Kramer flashback. Your new way in is like a Hoffman or a Dr. Gordon reveal.
Yeah, I agree.
That gets you there. But oh well.
I actually would have embraced Hoffman still being alive in this movie. That's how much I disliked it.
Wow. Jesus.
Because it would have been more interesting to me. At least like I know you, and hopefully you die. You know, like I'm still crossing my fingers, hoping he's dead. And the movie he comes in, and it's never final. So whatever. But
I said I was done. We're moving on. But one last thing, I felt this the first time I saw it, and I felt it now. The thing that where you can't pull the wool over my eyes, or whatever, is when those lasers go over him first, and the blood comes out. I'm like, so the laser's not cut through his skin?
Right.
Oh, I guess they need a few seconds, right? So 1001, 1002, 1003, now blood. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm like, something's up here. Like
Yeah.
the fact that they cut through his face, I went like with the yeah.
I was so over it by that point.
Like he has to look up at the ceiling.
Yeah, that was
You see it, and
interesting.
I'm like, no, but I'm like, I would have been suspicious without even having to look up at the ceiling. I'm like, they don't cut through his face, okay. But
Well,
the effect of them going through his face though, fucking
yeah,
gnarly as shit.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Um, okay, let's talk about Spiral. Spiral. I don't even know where to begin because I mostly liked it, but
Okay.
there is one thing that holds me back from liking it more,
What is it? What is it? What is it?
and it's something that you touched upon, and I'm like, great, I'm going to come back to that, which is this idea of when you figured out what's coming, and whether you go, yes, there it is,
Okay.
or in this case, I go, well, yeah, but look, I still liked it. I'm
Okay.
on board. This isn't enough to derail me, but it isn't. But it wasn't an. I'm not over the edge of because I've seen enough horror movies. This movie commits a sin. I've seen enough horror movies to know that when you do a movie, for example, Scream 3, where we show each character dying, and then we cut to one character who went down a hallway, and later we just find them dead. We're like, oh, well, he's not dead because I didn't watch his death scene. I've seen a horror movie. I know how this shit goes. So when when we show every cop getting abducted and then immediately being in the trap, or getting abducted and then the police arrive and we flash back to the trap. But in the case of is it Max Mignola? I think it's Max. Yeah, Max.
William Schenk.
William
I go by
Schenk.
the character names. Yeah.
Yeah, when William Schenk, when they send his little chunk of his tattoo to the station, I went, well, not only do we not see what happened to him, like the death scene, we also didn't see him get abducted. We didn't see fucking anything. So I'm like, bullshit. And then when they go and they find his body, all the flashbacks are just of like meat and skin. I'm like, that's not his body. They didn't show me his fucking face. This is not fooling me. I know this is supposed to make the audience feel like they're seeing him get killed, but I'm like, no. He's the fucking killer. Got it. And then when he's like standing there, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Sorry. In fact, if I remember correctly, because I only saw this once today, but like when he first takes a seat at his desk and he looks up at the picture of Sam Jackson's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this all because of him. If I remember correctly, midway through the movie, yeah, it's when Chris Rock's like at the door and stuff, or at the window, and he's like flashback to shit, I think. They flash back to that line. By flashing back to that line midway through the movie, it makes me think it's him, because that's a line that would have a double meaning that he's the killer. They shouldn't have featured it midway through the movie, and it didn't work. I even try to talk myself out of like, oh, it's not him. Like maybe the killer's still keeping him alive, and they cut his skin off, and we're gonna see him later with like a bloody bandage, and he's like in a trap. And then I'm like, oh no, it really was right though. It really was just him the whole time. Bummer, because I'm really liking this movie, but they really fucked up with that.
Okay.
Like the language of horror movies, like 101, like, dude.
Okay. Didn't bother me as much as it bothered you.
Really
because
took the wind out of my sails.
Well, this is the thing. This is what I mean by like, if you give me something else to like kind of sink my teeth into, like there are things that I can not even necessarily forgive, but that I can like just kind of like hold on to that'll buoy me up and keep me involved in the movie. And the
This
thing
movie
was,
had that.
Yeah,
I liked a lot of it, but we're talking about the ending.
But even with him, like, because this is the thing, everything that you're saying is true. And I did suspect as soon as the arm got sent, I was like, but we haven't seen the body, so we don't know. But I guess I was too in the movie to think that far ahead, because you also, I think we've covered this on this pod before. If you give me enough to like kind of feed on, or even to, you know, because I got my feels, if you give me enough to kind of like latch onto and care about, I don't really want to know what's coming. So I'm not really going to. Some people can't help it. Sometimes their minds are just geared that way. The only way my mind does that is when it's one of the other two things. It's just kind of like, called it, or when I'm just like, fuck you, movie. If I got it, if I could see it coming, you didn't do your work properly.
Yeah.
Or you, and that either means you didn't set it up properly, or and execute it properly, or you didn't give me enough other stuff to enjoy while you were just fucking up this reveal. And this one,
there have been multiple times on this podcast where I have said I saw something coming that you were like, oh, really? But you were also more on an emotional journey than I was.
And in this case, because I cared about William, I actually really, really liked him. And even if he was, I really liked him. Like, I felt what I think they wanted me to feel through Zeke, when Zeke finds out that William's dead, and just the guilt, and just the shock and the sense of loss, because not because of how shitty he was to him, and the fact that I knew something bad was going down when he borrowed his phone. But the thing was, I didn't focus on him borrowing Zeke's phone and leaving like the main conference room or wherever they were, you know, discussing everything. They gave me something else to focus on, because I focused on the fact that Zeke stood there and was soft, you know, like for one moment was just like vulnerable for just a moment. He just said, "Hey, William," or I think he called him Shank at that point. He's just like, "Hey, Shank, good job today." Yeah. And I was just like, I know how hard that was for you. And it's so stupid. I know people say that as a joke, just kind of like, I know how hard that must have been for you, you know. But I did. I knew that it meant something to me. I was just kind of like, dude, all he's wanted to do is be your partner like all this movie, and you're just starting to open a door. And see, because I started to feel that, the fact that it wasn't just reveal, hoo ha ha, I'm the killer, but I want to be your partner. I want you to be in an alliance with me. And I'm just like, yes, you do. Holy shit. It really, I loved it. I loved it. It was true the whole movie.
Can I clarify
I fucking loved it. You go for it.
Besides that reveal, the meat of the following several minutes of dialogue all worked on me.
Okay.
I'm fine with the betrayal that Chris Rock and everything that happened. I simply wish the movie didn't fumble earlier. But when it ruined the reveal to not be a surprise, I didn't go, and now everything after sucks. No, I still, because, well, first of all, because watching Max Miguel explain all that, like, no, it's because I already, there's two modes that he's operating in. The false performance he's giving for Chris Rock, you know, and then there's the truth of who I am and what my motives are. And he plays both wonderfully. I'm a big fan of his. I like him, and he's fucking great in Handmaid's Tale, which I know you haven't watched, but he is on it, and he's quite good. Seen him in a few other things, and I like him. I like him a lot, and I really like him in this.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not poo-pooing the idea of the twist or anything. So on board, really liked it. I'm just saying I saw it coming from a mile away.
Okay. That's fair.
But not who he is and what his motives are. Because that all, I'm still like, oh yeah. Right. Just you didn't, come on, you scream three'd with Roman. Get the fuck out of here. It should be better than this. Come on.
If we've learned anything, anybody who wants to go back and hasn't already seen our Scream 3 pod, we discuss at length what that Roman Sydney dynamic means to me once it is revealed who he is, and how it just solves the problem for me, because I'm like, at least I'm finally getting something that I can watch. I mean, I would say I think I favor the reveal and everything that it entails in Spiral over the reveal in Scream 3. That said, they're equally satisfying for me from then on, like after the reveal, like, and everything that follows. It's just, I think I spend a lot more time dragging my feet in Scream 3 than I do in this movie. I was really nervous going in, especially off of Jigsaw, because I haven't heard, this is the one I haven't heard like anything about, except for like I know that it was a generally kind of favorable to response that
Yeah.
I've been exposed to, but I didn't get any details. I didn't know anybody was going. I knew Chris Rock was in it, and that was it.
I didn't read reviews because I didn't really want to know
No.
anything,
Yeah.
because I was really interested in this one because of the story of how it all came about.
Yeah.
Which I think I mentioned at the beginning of the first one as Chris Rock's like, "Hey, I have an idea for Saw," which turns out isn't actually true so much as he bumped in the heads of Lionsgate and said, "I really like Saw and I'd like to be in one."
Mm.
And then the two guys who wrote Jigsaw,
Yeah.
who were writing Jigsaw 2, which you probably would have hated, like Lionsgate's like, "Hey, throw that script in the trash. We're done. Chris Rock wants to be in a Saw movie, and we'll start coming up with a new Saw movie."
Nice.
And then Chris Rock had input into like, I kind of would like it to be like 7. So he had like ideas,
yeah.
but he didn't pitch a Saw movie, which is, anyway, I want to correct that from the first one.
Okay,
anyway.
cool. I call that divine intervention no matter what.
Yes. I forget how I got on that subject though.
Oh, what were we just talking you asked me to rely on my memory. I've got my notes for that. I don't know. We could just dive into the next thing. If it comes to you, by all means, just like say it. But the return of Darren Lynn Bousman, I felt it.
I also not just the return of Darren Lynn Bousman, I would say the triumph of Darren Lynn Bousman. He has learned a lot since Saw 2, 3, and 4. You know me and how much you like Repo too, but I'm quite a fan of the direction and the energy and the intent of that movie. I'm not going to say anything about the Devil's Carnival movies.
Okay.
But I will say that this was considerably better than those.
Oh, all right.
I don't know how much of it is in the hands of producers and guidance, how much of it is his choices, but I see a lot of really, I don't know, Repo means a lot more to me, but this might be his best directed. Like, I really like, bravo, sir.
A
lot of strong choices, and that includes the team you surround yourself with. So yeah, obviously just photography, gore, editing, a lot of really good, but atmosphere, scene, like just pacing, like this is good fucking job, sir. Making it feel like a Saw-worthy story, but also letting it sort of feel like its own thing. Like the atmosphere, the visual, the colors, and the sort of the heat of certain scenes, like it really, absolutely. The direction was really, really solid. I also just, let me throw in, actually, let's just lean right into it. So Chris Rock.
Yes.
Bravo. I would never in a million years call this a comedy. I will say there are times where it is funny. Without never saying, "Oh, it's a funny movie." Like, no, it's a Saw movie. It's a Saw movie where the cop who's walking into a scene, no offense to the character, but like Eric is such a miserable shit. He walks into a crime scene, he's this fucking grump. And Dina Myers is like so focused because there's like a history with Jigsaw, and this whole squad has been trying to get him. To have this guy, this type of guy, who I wouldn't even say he's just naturally humorous. He just sort of is a guy, and the things he says, like objectively, are just kind of funny. Like he's got the rookie, and they're walking down a subway thing, and he's like, "Oh, like doing the talk about the wife and the divorce and the cheating. They cheat. He's like, I just found out. Did you know, like Pilates isn't even real? Like Pilates doesn't exist."
Yeah, right.
That was like the funniest fucking thing. Like, I just found out Pilates doesn't exist.
I love that.
And there's a lot of just like, we come into the bathroom and we kicked that guy out, which, by the way, impressive, because it seemed like he was mid piss, and it's really hard to just stop piss.
Ow, 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 ow.
But when she comes in, it's like, out. I'm like, oh, I get it, zip. But he's like, dude, wash your fucking hands. Like, just little asides.
Yes.
Little asides are good without getting like Joss Whedon-y about it, where like, you know, there's too much. I don't agree, but some people say there's like too much levity and everyone's a comedian. But like, this was like, I just appreciate the character, his phrasing of things. Because when he's saying them, he can be angry, he can be intense, and there's still like an underlying cleverness or wit to the way he just sort of views and phrases things. Like when you're confronting your dad about how like you guys don't talk, and I saw you yesterday and you gave me a head nod, you didn't say you gave me a head nod. You say you looked at me like I was the only other black guy in a mall.
Right.
That's witty, but it's not a joke.
Yeah.
And some people just have a wit about them.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that they brought that flavor to the Saw movie without ever leaning into it being a comedy. And I never was worried. Like, it felt like I was in good hands. I felt the movie was being nurtured to feel like a 7/Saw movie. And not once did it derail. And not once did I get a flicker in Chris Rock's eye that like, oh, you aren't right for this and you're too funny. Like, no, he was just great. He was fucking great, actually.
I want to speak to.
There's this somber shot of him walking down the hallway with these. I think he's wearing sunglasses, and I just feel the weight of all this. There's no dialogue. It's just a shot of a guy walking, but he's giving me all the weight that's on him, and that's really impressive.
I agree. Also, there was something present in Jigsaw that I didn't like, that I felt when I saw Chris Rock in particular in this movie, especially and just in his interactions with other people, because sometimes people kind of like hit back, like William has some moments. But in Jigsaw with Ryan, there were attempts to, I think, kind of drop humorous commentaries or, you know, asides and things like that never worked for me. And it didn't. I mean, I can't really say it's to the movie's detriment, because it took me this long to remember that they were even a component, but I just remember them not working for me, and me just being kind of like, I don't need that, thank you. And I don't think this movie needs that. But I watched Spiral, and I can't imagine the movie without Chris Rock, or somebody like Chris Rock with that kind of point of view and with that ability. I wrote the first thing I wrote about him was just like, I love Chris Rock. And what was interesting was, as the movie progressed, there were moments where a line delivery or something like that was a little stiff, or, you know, something like that. And I'm purely technically, where I'm just kind of like, I guess that wasn't his best take, or maybe they were on the clock and they could only like get what they needed and everything like that. And I'm just kind of like, but Chris Rock is, it doesn't mean Chris Rock isn't showing up. It's just, maybe it's just about like inhabiting scenes like this. And maybe it's also me just kind of being comfortable with him delivering lines like this when they're not funny, when they're not him like being a stand-up, sharing his point of view, or wisecracking, or even just telling the truth, when he's just kind of answering a question. Those are the moments where I as if I were directing an actor, I would probably want to take him aside and give him a distraction, or give him something more personal, or give him something specific, and it has whatever. Really, really totally technical stuff that does not ruin the performance for me at all. It just shows me, I would like Chris Rock to have more practice in roles like this, and I would love to see him play more roles like this, just for my brain, just to kind of reset my brain and just see him. But it also reminded me of Chris Rock delivering other people's dialogue, and how much I really love him. I can't put it any other way other than just like watching those words come out of his mouth. I flashed back, like just in the back of my mind, to Dogma, and just watching. I was quite familiar with Kevin Smith dialogue by the time I reached Dogma. So when I saw Chris Rock delivering it, I was like, fucking A. This is like, you're giving me the brand, like the Kevin Smith brand, exactly what I need. But I'm also getting it in a way that like no other person who's delivered it up until this point can really deliver it quite
Because
this way.
singularly, no, there is no other Chris Rock when it comes to his intentions, his energy,
Yeah.
his focus.
Yeah.
Like there, there's only like no one else sounds like Chris Rock,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Uh,
and that becomes only because I spent so much of like my teens being aware of him through SNL and my 20s through
yeah.
all this stand up
Mm-hmm.
that you can't help but hearing some of this energy and associating it with comedy. However, I mean, I like Dogma, but to me, the first time I really stood up took notice was Nurse Betty, where I was like,
Oh, right,
oh,
right. Okay.
okay, I see you there. Look at that. I was never. I mean, I was never nervous at all. Like I don't. Like when you put a comedian in something a little more serious, and
Yeah.
it didn't even before I saw the movie. I just saw like a poster. I'm just like, well, yeah, like why wouldn't like Chris Rock is capable? Like I don't even think of like Chris Rock,
Yeah.
a comedian. Like when I saw this, it was fine.
No,
Of
no.
course, the movie opens with him, which clearly had to have been written by him. This whole Forrest Gump monologue, because the writers didn't sit down and write that, or they might have had like an idea for it. No, but no nerves for me at all. Just I don't know how to word it, but like it was like a non-issue to me. The idea of him here. Let me put it this way: the level of humor his character brings to a scene is not dependent on Chris Rock, the comedian, even being cast in the part. It's the kind of stuff that if you had written this for like Mel Gibson and he's busting a perp and the leg's broken, he's like, well, let me get a selfie with that leg. Like The Rock.
Yeah, yes.
All these people who don't come from comedy, it's still that kind of humor that you would just write for that character.
I agree.
The only difference is
yeah,
it's Chris Rock. It's a comedian playing it. No, but
yeah,
it worked fine. It was great.
I
It's one of the
loved
strengths of the movie too.
I loved the Forrest Gump talk in particular because immediately it brought to mind Quentin Tarantino movies. I haven't seen them all, but the ones that I've been exposed to, I was just kind of like, and
oh yeah, this whole like they're dropping the Wire references. Like there is definitely
yeah,
kind of postmodern,
yeah, which I'm all about. And I just love that line, like I didn't see no sequel. Where's Gump 2? But I also appreciated it in retrospect because I didn't know Samuel L. Jackson was in this movie. So when he got revealed, I was just like, oh my gosh. And you were just reminding me of like a Tarantino movie. Specifically, I was thinking like, the discussions they had like in Pulp Fiction, of course. And Pulp Fiction lost the Oscar to Forrest Gump. It's all full circle, man.
It is.
And I am thinking all of this without ever being removed from the movie. I'm just getting more and more amped up and excited. So I appreciated that. Back to like some thematic things. One of the things that I really, really loved, I thought about you actually. It was the introduction of the television screen, and there's a person in a pig mask, and not Billy.
Yep, Billy.
Yeah, and number one, I thought about you because I'm like, oh, John Carlos is getting like his wish. It's like the pig being celebrated more. But you know what I loved about it even more as we progressed? I love the fact that pigs ended up being a theme throughout the movie, not just in terms of like an homage to like what came before or even like continuity, like or some kind of connective thread.
The slang for cops.
Exactly. So when they finally got that like marionette standing there, like with his badge on and everything, with the pig head, I was like, this is genius. This is blowing my mind. Because also, I think, it was the last movie, wasn't it, where they had that one line? This may be one more thing that I liked about it. When, because Johnny Jigsaw is the one, I believe, who says that pigs are actually very compassionate animals, and they'll register and express like some kind of duress if they experience any other living things around them that are like in kind of any kind of like harm or anything like that. That was a nice little added layer in Jigsaw. So that's one more tick for them. But bringing it to this
Wait,
and bringing, yeah.
Before we go back to this, I
Mhm.
also want to jump on to Jigsaw for a second.
Okay.
And I forgot to mention this. One little thing. Same scene with the reveal of the pig and the fact that it takes place on a farm. I'd rather believe that the pig masks as an idea comes from Jigsaw and the farm and these pigs versus I think a movie or two earlier where like I was chasing down that junkie and there's like a festival and I put on this plastic pig mask. And then I just went with that as a motif. So I prefer the Jigsaw explanation of the pigs more.
I get that. Yeah. Okay. One more for Jigsaw.
So going back to Spiral and the pigs.
But going back to Spiral and the pigs, like another thing that I really, really appreciated it was juxtaposing like this compassion that pigs can feel for other living things while they're under duress, and the way these cops or pigs are cutting themselves off emotionally from any kind of empathy and going in exactly the opposite direction, and the fact that it's not just working within the body of the franchise but it's socially relevant. Again, we get to something like with the health insurance in Saw 6 that makes me excited because I'm like, you're not just giving me something that's vital within the body of the saga. You're giving me something that is socially relevant, that is actually making. It's debatable whether it's making a comment on society or whether it's simply using elements of society that are evocative that we can see mainstream audiences certainly by now can see with a renewed kind of vision that maybe it wouldn't have landed with quite so many people 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whenever. So I appreciated that immeasurably. I never got tired of seeing the pig puppet, and I would just kind of go, yes, 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 I love this. Yeah, you were gonna say.
No, I'm glad you touched upon that. This movie, I think, was intended to be a 2020 release.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was pushed back to early 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Some interesting things happened in 2020 regarding police in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And some protests regarding George Floyd and a few other people.
Right.
I'd be curious to know when was this written? Because obviously there's been a problem prior to George Floyd in 2020.
Yeah.
So those things were definitely there.
Yes.
But I would have been very interesting to see this in a non-pandemic alternate universe to come out in the same year. Just to see how it might have landed. Not differently because people had access to it, but it wasn't released in theaters by a wide audience in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Even with those problems existing within a system prior to George Floyd, prior to any 2020 protests.
Yeah.
I found it immediately, the opening scene, Chris Rock is with these people, and I remember thinking, I thought he was a cop. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong.
Oh,
and then when they get in the car and the doors open, I'm like, he's in on the job, and he okay, got it. And then sure enough, they're like, what are you doing here? But this idea that he goes off on his own and works on his own, and he goes, because I can't trust any of these fucking people. And I immediately thought, I immediately just like sank into my seat because it is something I can't even fathom what it's like, and I cannot speak to what it is to be a black man who's a police officer in the US. I can't unpack it. I don't even know. So I can't speak to it. But I'm sure whichever of the many ways they could feel about that situation, I instantly was just taken back. They're like, oh yeah, so we are making a movie. Even though the target on his back is specifically because he did the right thing and ratted on a shitty cop. That's a target on your back when you're operating as a cop versus other kind of targets for
Mhm.
different reasons. They're still a target. It's still a pressure for a black officer. And I loved that the movie didn't shy away from it. I actually thought of you when it came to, was it Rig? But when he's,
Which one?
no, is I think his name's Rig. He gets the spotlight in Saw 4, but he's watching Donnie Wahlberg.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
And you were talking about how like he's a black cop watching a cop abuse his power, and he's not.
Yes.
And here's look how far we've come now,
Mhm.
where we're addressing the idea of being on the force and not being able to be. I can't trust them, and
Yeah.
being hated. And I went, wow, okay. However, like you're right though. It I don't know how much they're saying so much as they're just sort of
Mhm.
addressing it and using it
Yeah. Yeah.
to set this as something. If
Sure.
anything, and this is, I don't want to say it's a problem, because even when it's addressed in this way, I'm
Mhm.
still happy it's being addressed. But it is sort of a thing
Sure.
that I noticed where the the when I forget his name, I just want to call him Max Mignella, but
William
William.
Shank.
When
Yeah.
William is basically saying, I am targeting crooked fucking cops,
Mhm.
that this is a problem and it needs to be
Mhm.
fixed.
Mhm.
Um, Even that it needs to be fixed, but just the idea of a character saying, look at this system and what it's, look at the thing that your father allowed to grow in this department.
Mhm.
That is something worth saying out loud in a movie.
Yeah.
Yay. Then I go, but it's in coming out of the mouth of the villain. Bummer. And I see this a lot with movies
Mhm.
where I'm so happy something's being addressed by the villain. And then the villain is defeated. And even if the hero isn't completely on the opposite, like I don't, this isn't like I remember like Kingsman, like Sam Jackson's whole reason for wanting to like blow up
Sure.
all the heads of people is like, have you seen what we are doing to this fucking planet? Like, and he like lays out like this. The solution is not blow up a bunch of people and cause them all to like turn rabid and kill each other.
Yeah.
But we see this a lot, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting tired of like the right intention but the wrong action. But for the villain, there's a lot of like, well, aside from trying to kill those people, Magneto's kind of right. But
Mm.
you start to put in the position, or at least posit the question: well, is the villain wrong then, or does this make it sort of a tragic? Not tragic, but I don't know. It'd be there's no real easy way to say this, but it is difficult for me to go, hey, that's an interesting theme to have. That's a problem in real life. But it's the bad guy who's saying it. Shit, we're not supposed to like the bad guy, right? He's okay.
Huh. I think there's definite validity to what you're saying. I didn't quite look at it that way. And this is something I have to remember because one of the reasons I was grateful for it. Well, we'll get into that, but what before I get into why I was grateful for it and what I liked about it, it's I think it's important to be reminded, for me personally, that not everybody's going to see it the way I see it.
Correct.
So somebody might get something more in the line of like what you're saying of like, yeah, see the bad guy saying that, so that's why it's not a real problem, or that's why he needs to be stopped, and it's not the system, it's that guy. That said, he made William made such a fucking compelling argument to me
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't know what Zeke should do. At this point, Zeke is basically kind of our avatar, our way in, because he's the person going through the trap who has to like make the decision. And he's been doing that up until this point. He did it with Pete before, and he did it with Angie, and he did it with no, and he didn't do Fitch. So yeah. But and then he finally had to do this with his father. I was watching it and I was like, I really don't know what I would do. It's just one of those moments where the emotions are so high, and the clock will always add extra anxiety to any of this, because not only do you have to make a decision, but you have to make it in 60 seconds or whatever.
Right.
And then you have to achieve the thing, which is hard. And it's just, blah, 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 blah. So there's all that. But what I thought was just like, I can't argue with anything that is coming out of William's mouth. It's not like in okay, I realize like this is what I love about particularly Marvel movies, and occasionally DCEU movies do this too, where the villain has a point of view and an argument why this needs to be done and why this person needs to be taken down, or this empire needs to be toppled down, or whatever, like, this is why I need to end the corruption, and this is the only way. And the hero is supposed to come in with an argument, no, but that is not the only way, because you didn't think about this, you haven't looked at this, what about all of these, like all of that, is that what this person who you loved who died would have wanted, like all that,
Yeah.
We don't get any of that in this movie because there is no counter argument to it. You can only just kind of say, but it's wrong. But it's like, and yeah, you can say the most trite, horrible, ineffective, like, are you hearing yourself kind of arguments where you're just like, two wrongs don't make a right. Just because they're wrong doesn't mean you have the. It's like, no, you're a person who, oddly, maybe it's because just the lack of time that I've spent with him. I've had limited time with William, but I get it. It's more, I get it more so than Jigsaw, Johnny Jigsaw, with his argument of like why he doesn't know, like that. I had a problem with it in the first movie, but at the same time I was scared of it because I got it. But I would not know. I feel like with Johnny Jigsaw I can have a conversation. I know what I'd say, and it's just the first day, so maybe I'll develop something later, but I doubt it. I don't know what the fuck I would say to William to get him to stop, or to get him to change his mind, or to tell him in an effective way, I disagree with you and you're wrong and we can't go about it this way. There's a better way, because I don't know what it is. Sorry, what happened to your dad? Get over it. What? You can't.
Because at this point, it's not even about his dad. It's about a system that allows these kinds of officers to continue.
Exactly.
He's not standing there going, all cops are bastards. He still went through the system, became a cop, but he's saying this type of corruption should not be in this system, and let's do something about it.
He even clarifies it. He says, you want me, Zeke asks him, you want me to help you kill cops? He says, no. Well, I don't remember what the exact line is, but he's like, not all of them, just the ones who, abuse their power, or the corrupt ones, or whatever it is he says. And I'm like, oh, wow.
That's,
I mean,
this isn't like Thanos, where,
no,
where you go, Jesus, half the people. It's like, yeah, but there aren't enough resources. There's not enough mouths to feed. There's too many mouths to feed. And I go, oh, mouths to feed. Yes, that is a noble, not noble, but like, that is a problem to solve. But maybe not snapping away half the people is the answer. But whereas this one, you go, oh, you don't want corrupt cops in this city.
Right.
Okay, Batman, I get that, but what you want to do to them, that is,
But again, he's also not just like, he's not saying, let me kill them either. He wants to put them into his system. He wants to put them through the Jigsaw machine. They could get
their way out. But okay, and then here's the new problem. Right. Do they come out of these traps reformed?
See, that's what I would love to ask him. See, I love that we're talking about this, because those are the kinds of questions that being too steeped in my, because I don't I when it comes to things that I don't have experience in, it is really hard for me to be self-righteous and speak with
Right.
authority. So everything that he's speaking from, I that's why I can't speak to it, because it's not, I can't go like, I know, that
Right.
maybe that's the way in, like,
You
that's
have
why
an idea of,
yeah,
but
when it's written the best way, the hero usually has a way in to empathize with the villain, or the heavy. That's why I don't call them
Eddie,
villains anymore. I call them heavies, because they're the teacher for the hero. The hero needs to learn a lesson, and the heavy is there to basically teach them.
yeah.
And that's what he is. That's why I fucking love this movie, because I don't feel like he's a villain. I feel like he's certainly, you know, cast in that role as far as the way the movie is positioned, because Zeke is the protagonist. So we have an antagonist, but there are a lot of antagonists,
But
actually.
we've
There isn't
but that
just one.
what you're describing has always been like the age-old thing of X-Men, which is like
Mm-hmm.
Magneto isn't necessarily the villain.
Right.
Boy, does he have a point. Is he quite the antagonist? Like,
Right.
this is not the first piece of media to have that kind of struggle.
Yeah.
But this idea that, like, well, Jigsaw's traps didn't really reform anybody. So that makes me wonder, well, would these? But the
Right.
other question is it really about reformation? Because he even said, "You want me to help you kill cops? No, 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 no. I want you to help me kill these cops."
Right. Right. Right.
So he is still about killing. But then on the other hand, he talks about the spiral, meaning a sense of change and like evolution.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a little messy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still,
But
any solution you pose, somebody's going to suffer somewhere. That's just
sure.
the way it is. It's too involved. There's too many people, and I mean, it would be nice if I had the kind of faith in humanity, but I watch the news. But if I had the kind of faith in humanity at large,
Uh-huh.
for us all to kind of like join together, be on the same page, recognize each other's humanity, each other's right to live our lives as we best see fit, and as long as we don't hurt anybody else, we're cool. As long as you're not damaging the people around you or in your vicinity, or even going somewhere else and damaging other people, as long as you're just like cool, we'd be fine. The world would be great if we could just like be cool. Everybody, stop it. Just be cool.
We're all going to be a couple of Fonzies.
Yeah, exactly. Because what's Fonzie? He's cool.
He's cool.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Hey, Yolanda, bring the gun back on me.
But
Okay,
okay.
cool.
But okay, so the likelihood of that happening, first of all, I don't know how you get that to happen, except you're like one person at a time and everything like that. The way I live my life, okay, great. But when a guy's got my dad in a vice, or like hooked up with like on a marionette with like blood, everything, and then there's like cops right outside, and he's telling me to make a decision. The clock's running, and I just absorbed this information about my father being corrupt. And I just watched my friends die, after trying to save them and failing. That's a lot. I
sure
get
is.
why Zeke, and also I would argue, because you mentioned something about like the villain like losing out or something like that. I would argue William doesn't lose.
Oh, he absolutely.
He gets away, and he gets to do the ironic back to the person who did it after he watched his father get killed, and still managed to see some good in Zeke because of what followed, and also because of the injustice he suffered as a result of it. I think that got him some more empathy points. But yeah, I'd argue William. I look forward to seeing him again. That's all I can say. I think he's compelling. I think he's interesting, and I think he's probably the best thing next to Chris Rock to happen to this franchise.
Yeah. And also just through the basis of, look, I like John Kramer. But I do like the flip side of John Kramer's old. Now we've got this young guy. It's just like a new shade of color that we're painting with, and a new energy, and also like a new life experience.
And he's like a peppy. Like he could move about and get people to like him. He could get women to let him in their homes. He could get children. He's sitting on a stoop playing with stranger children
You
who
know
don't
what?
know him.
Here's one little thing that before the tattoo was mailed,
Mm-hmm.
I was like so on board for him, and just because I like a dude, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
way he like turns to Chris Rock, he's like, well, maybe it's because these women don't like being called bitches. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
The way he's speaking about his wife and his marriage and his
Mm-hmm.
the way he's pretending to be exhausted about the kid crying. But
Yeah.
when he's like, I'll wait outside. And first of all, just like the way he like leans in and they're like, nope, like
Yeah.
that was a good beat. Like you're overstepping and you're like he was great. But what gets me is when Chris Rock leaves the house and we cut to him just killing time with some
Mm-hmm.
kids that are probably just passing by.
Mm-hmm.
Really made me like that dude.
I know.
That dude. Especially
Yeah.
because, kids respond to when adults don't talk to them like they're
Mm-hmm.
children,
Yeah.
but also when adults just sort of give them their time. Like it's
Yeah.
not, and he did a really good job of playing that lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the two of them, just, and we're playing with tropes of like, oh, I got the new rookie and I don't want to train them. And watching Chris Rock kind of melt into bringing him into the fold,
Yeah.
telling him good job, go home and hang out. Like I really liked like I felt so betrayed by the finale. Even without any thematic ideas. I was just no. Ugh. I also just like the idea of going off of this whole series, but specifically and I'll always say this, John Kramer's idea of whether Jeff was grieving good enough or not. But this idea of crooked people in power, be it through property, through healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
or just people making mistakes that he considers sins, but to now have not just in a
Mm-hmm.
sort of 2019 2020 protest idea of cops as sinners, but specifically going like the sinners of this movie are these cops
Mm-hmm.
abusing shit. Here is someone who lies on the stand constantly and gets people thrown in jail
Mm-hmm.
improperly. I
Mm-hmm.
forget what, I think it was the guy with the fingers. Oh, yeah, he shot a civilian, put their hands out, give him a middle finger.
Oh, right.
So he
Fish.
unloaded
Yeah.
his gun into them.
Yes.
An unarmed citizen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, like,
Mm-hmm.
you make that movie in 2020, that carries a lot of weight. And
yeah.
I'm not saying like, yeah, do more Saw movies where we go after cops, but this idea of like, but yeah, like make a movie where, much like I said, like where Dexter is going after like bad people.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you made me remember there's a part in Spiral. I think Zeke says it. I can't remember if somebody says it to him or I think he's the one who says it though. And somebody is like in his ear talking about like him targeting cops. He's just like, but Jigsaw didn't target cops. Or maybe he says John Kramer didn't target cops. And I liked that he said it. I liked that he got the delineation because it is a wide range of people that John Kramer and his ilk got in those traps. But that said, I was also like, but didn't he?
No, me too. Wasn't Eric a cop? Wasn't Dina Meyer a cop? Wasn't Rig a cop?
I thought about that part. I think it's in Saw 4 where they're giving, it's either, maybe it's the beginning of 5, when they're giving Hoffman the award or
and
whatever.
It's all these photos
and
of dead
just a
cops.
panel of all the cops that we've seen that we've come into contact with the 4 movies prior, and they're all dead, and he's the only one left standing.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Saw 7, there's a whole reason why like it's IA handling it now. It's because all the cops from that squad from 1 through 6 are fucking dead.
Yeah. So
I remember in 7 going, who the fuck is this guy? And I'm like, oh well, no, everyone who's been doing it's fucking
right.
We even brought in the feds and we killed these 2 federal officers. Like, holy shit.
Yeah. No, so I liked that he
Unless
made that delineation, but I also unless what?
Well, no, I'm just going to say, unless maybe Chris Rock's just sort of going off newspapers, where newspapers will say, there was this building where these people were found in traps. There was this place where these people were all found. And they probably aren't going to cover as much about. And then the officer that was investigating was also like killed here. You're going to read about the 6 people that were found on the fucking merry-go-round.
Right.
Maybe Chris Rock is maybe going off of the generalization.
That's what I thought.
Because out of the grand total of all these movies, of all these people, it's like 10, 15 people and like 1 cop. And then for every 10 people, there's like maybe 1 officer. So maybe
1 or 2, yeah.
But also that line did make me go, oh.
Yeah. No, and that's what I loved about it, because it made me think like he's offering, because they're making it sound like he is targeting cops, and that's what John Kramer does. And I'm like, but that isn't the whole truth.
No.
It's not
his MO where it's
this he's not just kind of like, you know what, I'm going to rid the world of cops. And that was one thing that was different in the agendas between these 2. Doesn't mean that John Kramer never targeted cops, because there were some people, I remember by the time Carrie got in her little rib cage thing and everything like that was intended for her. I remember thinking like, why does Carrie need to be in there? What did she do? And even though Hoffman set it up, John Kramer knew about that, right? About Carrie and her little rib thing.
I'll
have to go back.
I know Amanda manipulated it so she couldn't get out.
Right.
But I was under the impression that was Amanda's doing, and I don't know if Kramer knew about it.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see. I'll have to go back.
Because I don't know what her sin is.
See, I wondered that at the time, and I wonder it now. But now I can go back in the movies and really, the next time I go through this franchise, I'm really gonna try to go with a keen eye and try to decipher who did what's going on. Like, because now that I have this universe in my head, I'd really like to make some sense out of it. And I mean, this is great. Like, build a case in your head for why one character would have done it and not another. But anyway, so yeah, I was just grateful that he could recognize that Zeke as a character, as a detective or whatever in this movie. But I was also grateful that it wasn't already the lens is getting foggy. Like, there are no kind of like hard, this isn't that way, it's this way. It's like, well, it's more complicated than that. And I also, you mentioned something and I wanted to remark on it. I can't remember. Anyway, it'll come back to me, or it won't. But there's one other thing I want to address in this movie that doesn't have anything to do with theme, doesn't have anything to do with any kind of social relevance. It doesn't have anything to do with like these great performances by these actors that I think deserves being addressed. And it's the brutality of these traps. The first one, when we see, what's his name, Boz, in his tongue trap hanging there while the train's coming. I had just had lunch. And I could already start to feel like this can't last much longer, or I'm going to be sick. Like, I'm going to get sick. And I don't want to do that. But I'm sitting there just waiting. And also just like with the angst, like, kind of like, people talked about like the shooting, the actual, framing of the shots in Blair Witch Project, and how, people got motion sickness because of all of that. I always attributed it to that, but also just like kind of like the bland color palette and the emotional just fatigue that you get from watching these people argue and go through everything that they go through. That's what made me sick, really. So I was already like watching this man going, and I'm just like, oh God, and he's trying to bite on it, and I'm just like, oh God, it was gross. It was so gross. It's so gross. Okay, so there's that. Then we've got Fitch's finger trap. Jesus Christ. I was just watching the fingers like stretch off of his hands and everything like that, and him screaming, and how long is the fact that it broke up from like the beginning of the trap and the resolution of the trap and I'm going, it really fucked me up. And then with fucking Angie's spinal cord. Okay,
Oh yeah.
I don't like this. I don't want to blade. I don't want to have to do it myself. And I don't like the bag with the hot wax over her so she doesn't melt too quickly. And so she can still scream and so she can still kind of breathe while it's just burning her face, just going ha 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 ha, trying to hack her own spinal cord and quadriplegic herself. And I'm just like, it was insane. It was
Eddie,
insanity.
I appreciate your depiction of all this.
It was insane. They were way immersive for me, highly effective. I almost couldn't watch them. And I was really, really grateful for that at this stage. Because also, I also at the same time, I wasn't going like, this is, because sometimes if you go too far, I can pull out and I'll be like, this is too much. I can't take this. It was just enough for me to just be like, and then that's what I want. That's what I want in movies like this, like where we're going to give you some graphic, violent, practical effects stuff, which I appreciated. So I wanted to call attention to all that.
I would like to call attention to something incredibly minor.
No, please.
When Chris Rock goes to the first, I think it's Boz, the first dead officer's wife's house,
mm-hmm.
and his soon-to-be ex-wife opens the door.
Yeah,
and it's
Lisa.
It's Janelle Williams, who, for any Warehouse 13 fans out there, which I am one, she was Lena, and I'm a big fan. And when she showed up on screen, I was like, "Ah, Lena!"
Aww.
And I thought, by her being there, that like she's gonna factor into the story. And then like half an hour later, I'm like, "Are we gonna? Is his divorce? Is she gonna come back? Is she gonna come back?" And then the movie ended. I'm like, "Oh, it's cool," but like, this is a weird thing to say. I almost wish they hadn't cast her because like I got my hopes up that she was gonna have like as. You know how
be
like,
in the trap. I totally thought she was going to be in the trap.
No, Eddie, not even be in a trap.
Oh, I totally thought. Okay.
Be on screen more.
Oh, because,
have other scenes.
An actress of that stature, right?
You said in Saw 3D the guy who's walking across the boards. You liked him.
Yeah.
He was in Queer as Folk?
Yeah.
You go, oh, I like him.
Yeah.
You got to have him in multiple scenes. I had Janelle Williams, and I was like, yeah. And then it's like, fuck off, you're done for the day. I was like, oh, don't put her on the screen and then take her away so quickly. It's that's just a little thing.
I didn't. It's not like I got to enjoy him.
No, I'm just. Anyway.
No, I know what you mean, though. I get it. I totally get it. But
also, one thing I really appreciate about this, starting like very blatantly within the first 15 minutes, going like, oh, this is a cop movie. In that sense that I was kind of really happy that like we talked about how like so many of the other Saw movies are cutting back to a police procedural. For like half the movie, they are a fucking cop TV show, but like a procedural show.
Right.
Walking through a hallway into an office, and this happens, and we're gonna send some unis to that location, and we're gonna lock this area down, and we're investigating a crime scene. But this movie, while still also being that, is not a procedural.
Yeah.
This is Seven. This is the serial killer. This is Zodiac, not to that degree, but the killer is messing with the cops and not just I'm doing some traps and I'm talking to one officer and I'm sort of playing these sort of things while I'm also doing this. Like, no, all the traps, the whole thing. It is me fucking with you officers. It is. Leans heavily into Seven. And I think that's a very fun, fresh tone to take the ninth movie. No, the ninth movie.
The ninth.
But also aside, here's the universe, and then over here is this other story. It's a good approach. I really like it. At first, I will tell you at first though, when I got to the ending, and Sam Jackson dies, Chris Rock's like no to the officers, blah, 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 blah. he looks over at Mignola, the doors close, and then credits. And I was like, what? No. Ah, fuck. I don't like this. That's too abrupt. But about half an hour later, I was like, well, that story did end.
Yeah.
And it leaves me wanting more. So good
Yeah.
job, because I immediately do want a Spiral 2.
Me
And I
too.
also wanted to do that Saw thing where I wanted to start right. I needed to start with Chris Rock on the ground screaming.
Oh
I
God, that
need
would
to
be
I need to
amazing.
see Max Mignola leaving, and
Yes.
whether Chris Rock can pull his wits together to go after, or if he gets away. Like, what's the next moment? And also, I
Yes.
kind of want some Last Jedi shit where, like, do I get to see a movie where Chris Rock struggles with what he was told?
Yeah.
Does he come over to that? Does he entertain that notion? Does he vehemently put his hands up against it? Like, I need. There's so many interesting places you can go with this.
There are. Yeah.
I know. I, during the pandemic, I'm obviously not talking about horror with a lot of people that I get to talk horror movies with, and not enough horror people I know are even that into Saw.
Hmm.
So all I really have to go off as far as opinions go are like the horror Instagram accounts I follow. And there was a lot of, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
And then a few people going like, yeah, this was good, but mostly, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah. That's what I heard.
I, I'm not raving over here, but like I am definitely saying I like these characters.
Mm-hmm.
I like the themes they're bringing to this, and I definitely want to keep going with this. And please don't wait 7 years to do a
No.
Spiral
No.
2 that isn't even really a sequel because you waited 7 years and you come up with
Mm-hmm.
some new thing for Chris Rock to encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I really solid. In fact, between the direction and the story and the themes, I'm surprised more people are into it. But also,
No.
Saw has always been something that's not everyone's cup of tea, and it does deliver the Saw stuff. That
Yeah.
if you don't like Saw, guess what? It is still kind of a police procedural. It still has gross traps. It
Mm-hmm.
still has like a twist, and it has that the theme. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you don't like Saw, you're not gonna. This isn't so different that's gonna change your mind or
I.
bring you on board to this version.
Yeah. I don't. I wouldn't know. I mean, I guess it depends per person, but
Correct. There are some people that I could maybe see, but in generally speaking, a huge
but
swath of
yeah.
people who are
Yeah.
like, that's not really my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you tone down the gore considerably of the traps, you
I wouldn't
might
want
get some
that
people,
though.
but you might get some people that are like, oh, this is kind
Yeah,
of like
maybe.
Seven. I'm on board with this. It's like, no,
But
no, but we still need, you know.
it's also not so isolated that I mean, I guess you could watch it on your own and just kind of go like, oh, I don't really know what that means. But if you haven't seen any other Saw movies or if you've only seen Saw 4 or something like that. But I I don't know that I'd encourage anybody to see it on its own because so much of what I appreciate it is its place in the
Yes.
franchise. Is I love this direction, particularly on the heels of Jigsaw. If I if we had done this and either Spiral hadn't come out yet, or if we'd done this pod like a few years earlier and Jigsaw was the last like this, I think this would end a lot more kind of bleak for me. I would have been like, what a fart for me to go out on instead of like a bang or a triumph. And even though this isn't like you said, you're not raving. I'm not raving. I'm just optimistic about this direction versus where we were, and I like it. I would like
Yeah.
to continue seeing what this team or what other people who are in charge of why it got here, who aren't the director and the screenwriters, anybody at the studio or any producers, what they're going to usher forth as far as the next chapter. There was only one thing that I really pulled out of this movie at a certain point, and I had to laugh, and it was really inappropriate for
Uh-oh.
me to laugh at this. But it's after Captain Garza, Angie,
Mm-hmm.
after her death with when
hot wax.
yeah, with the hot wax, when Zeke comes in and discovers her body there, and he starts to peel the wax off, and she is burned and everything. Still not laughing, going like, oh fuck. And also that looks, and she also might still be alive, but he's talking to her, and she's obviously not. And this is when I started to laugh.
Okay.
He starts to give her mouth to mouth,
Yeah.
and he doesn't pinch her nose. He doesn't push on her chest like you're supposed to. He full on punches her chest and just breathes on her mouth. Like, I mean, like lips over lips, but full on just like, Angie. And I'm like, that's not how you start a heart. That's not how you respirate. And you should know that. You're a fucking detective.
That's the thing I've had CPR training, and I'm a civilian. I guarantee you, cops who arrive at scenes have all been through. If they haven't been, I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
You tilt the head, you clear the passageway, you pinch the nose, you breathe in, and then you count, and you do the
and you compress. Like,
yeah. So I knew, like, that was one point where I was just kind of like, okay, we're getting. I think they were going for the emotion of it. Like he was very emotional at the time, and he did. There was a great sense of loss that he was feeling at that moment. And that's all fine and good, but there's a way that actually only gets fed if we're more accurate as far as the process. That is I would imagine that's a very traumatic thing to have to perform mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and chest compresses on someone you care about, someone you respect, someone you look to for guidance, and they're not coming back, and you have to keep it together because you have to make sure you're doing it properly. That only heightens the emotionality for me, and it's a shame. That's basically the only real problem I had with the movie, and it did pull me out of the moment, but I got right back in after it.
I got pulled out about 30 seconds to a minute before that, but the same scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Zeke has figured out what's going on, busts in the police station. Where's Angie?
Yeah.
I kind of thought it was weird because, she's down in the basement. Like, okay, the killer is after her. And he gets one off. I'm thinking, get 6. Like, let's go down there. And he's just walking down the steps with one cop. And I'm like, that's it? Fuck, I would have brought more. But what kills me is they cut to I think it's 2 different shots of them walking down the hallway. And I'm like, why are you fucking running? They walk down the hallway. And here's what gets me even more than that is the door's locked and she's got to do the thing to get in. He's like, come on, hurry, hurry. And I'm like, hurry, hurry. Where was hurry, hurry down the hall? You leisure walked. That's when you hurry, hurry.
Oh, actually, you know what? That brings me to mind another little thing that the record skipped for me. It didn't pull me out, but I was just kind of like, oh, that's a choice. Well, he's standing there with the flashlight yelling, hurry, hurry. But then there's shots of him like pacing, not holding the flashlight where she's working, telling her to hurry. And I'm like, how can she see if you're pacing behind her, telling her to hurry? Fuck you. But they need a shot
of hold it fucking still for me, you asshole.
Exactly. Like, I get it. Again, a stylistic approach, and it's a choice. But it was enough for the record to skip for me, like I said. But it didn't. But then when he finally is in there, breathe, damn it! I'm like, oh God, this is okay. You got it, dude. Somebody should have said something. Chris Rock should have said something. Someone should have said something. But that's hilarious that you said, because you know what you just said. The only reason it didn't bother me that he only took one person is because so many of these fucking officers, when they go to investigate something in these movies, go alone. Yeah. So I was just glad he had someone. I was just like, smart, you've got someone. You're not just walking around alone, getting something stuck in your neck,
But when you're in a room full, you're in the bullpen, and you're like, the killer's going to, I'm like,
right.
That's it. No, and they all heard it, right?
Yeah.
And then she's going with him. Okay. That should be more.
I did get a genuine sense of dread with those boxes, though. Every time those little kind of like Tiffany boxes from Al.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Every time I was just like, I like this. Like, just even just purely visually, like the cues are just doing something to my psyche where I'm just like, yeah, I'm into So,
oh
yeah.
shit, what, when they, I always, that's always my chunk. Oh shit, what, when those boxes show up, and just seeing the way the police handle it. Also,
Yeah.
I thought the new piggy puppet was a nice addition to the lore, the visual lore. And then also, I didn't mention this before, and I am going to mention it now, but I had a very emotional reaction to something that wasn't necessarily a character beat kind of emotion, but it was too real life that I
Okay.
had a visceral, immediate kind of impulse kind of response. It's kind of, I don't want to say pulled me out, but kind of like triggered me a little bit. And that's when at the end of the movie, the cops break in, they trigger that thing on the door, which makes Sam
Mm-hmm.
Jackson lift a gun up. It was
Mm-hmm.
just too, even though it in this movie it's an actual gun,
Yeah.
it's still meant to trigger these officers to do that thing where I feel threatened and let me just unload.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen too much on the news of there was a guy at a party with a toy gun. There was an autistic kid playing with a toy car and they thought it was a gun. There's too many
Mm-hmm.
things where they were holding a pen and I thought it was a this.
Or a phone or any,
Yeah.
yeah.
So to, even though it was a real gun, to see that Sam Jackson was being manipulated into something to trigger that response immediately just made me like upset and sick and mad and sad and just,
Yeah.
oh, like that. Even that was a, I don't want to say a cruel thing for the movie to do, but it really fucking stirred something in me, and I went, oh god, like it
Oh yeah.
was a sick thing to do to Sam Jackson. It was a sick thing, especially knowing what, I'm gonna say his character name this time, and not Max Minghella or Minghella. Minghella. It's
William.
Minghella. William. Knowing what he's fighting against, you should know, like you know what you're doing when you do that with Sam Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
You know exactly the response you're going for, and it's almost really that's a
Mm-hmm.
sick thing for you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, when, and I'm not going to say Sam Jackson because I don't want to make it sound like Sam Jackson perpetuated any of that. So I'll say Chief Marcus Banks.
Yeah.
So when Marcus Banks, who has been the perpetrator of so much, like the catalyst behind so much injustice to the people, for the people, you know, in his argument. He was literally making the argument while he was hanging there, being bled dry. He was still defending his decision. And I think there is a strange, from William's point of view, I think there's a strange sense of poetic justice when you have, whoever you are, whatever the color of your skin is, when you have been behind the what's the, I mean, just the chucking into the meat grinder of so many members of society who needed help, who didn't deserve the punishment you gave them, you know, like there was an imbalance with the crime versus like the
Mm-hmm.
ultimate punishment. And so I hear what you're saying. I think I was, number one, I think I was too amped up and too like, I don't know what to do with all this. Um, but at the climax, that I was a little outside of it, like still in the movie as a viewer, but I was a viewer. I think I was more. I just remember, because I remember thinking it was kind of brilliant, that and terrible, but within a script, to have a character hooked up to something that's going to make it look like he's on the offensive
Mm-hmm.
to people who don't, I'm not, I don't even know how to put it, to people who are going to make the wrong decision. Like you can almost count on it, let's put it
Right.
that way. And I think there was a sense of almost pride in the fact that like Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson were attached to this project, attached to this moment, were contributing to delivering this moment to us, and the mindfulness behind it. All of that, I think, overrode my trauma because it is a movie. It's not. I'm still kind of riding a movie wave at this point, and I'm not going, oh, that's terrible. You know, I'm just
See,
kind
I
of like,
was until that moment.
see, no, my mind was being
Even
blown. I was
though,
like,
even though it's a real gun and not like a toy car, and even though from the officer's point of view, it is a real gun, but I know that it's a lie. I know it's a manipulation in that sense.
absolutely.
Since it's Sam Jackson not wanting to point a gun,
Yeah.
it is false. It is just as false as other incidences. So it just triggered something, and I just wanted to point it out because, man, that is a fucking manipulation that fucked with me. Really,
You know, I totally understand that. Yeah, I get that. I think I think just seeing what point William was trying to make to Marcus made it work for me. Not like in a way where I'm like, I'm glad it happened. I wish none of the fucking shit in this movie had to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it did have to happen, but it did happen. I mean, within the universe. So I don't know. He's William Shank has, if that's his name, whatever his name is, this character, maybe we'll find out later it wasn't, and this was just like a nom de plume or something. But right now, for all intents and purposes, William Shank is, I don't know what to do with this character, and I love that.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't a nom de plume.
I can't remember.
Yeah. There's something about the reveal and the flashback with the
His dad was Charlie, but was Charlie's last name Shank?
I don't remember. I remember.
I don't remember.
I feel like it was addressed, and I got the intention.
Yeah, there was too much going on.
But yeah, it's funny. You mentioned this. I remember this now, so I'm going to say it now, even though you mentioned it a while ago. But you were talking about when other movies have like a villain, and maybe what they're saying is kind of right, but what they're doing is wrong, and you try to talk them out of it. But with this one, you had a harder time. I was just imagining trying to talk your way into not doing this to him, and I literally don't have to imagine it because shortly before we recorded this, I watched the season premiere of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is very funny, and I love it, love to death. But one of the things about Brooklyn Nine-Nine was that they were off in 2020 when a lot of Black Lives Matter protests happened, and they're like, "Holy shit, we're a cop show. We're gonna address it in this comedy. We're gonna go there a bit." And I'm not going to spoil the show or any character dynamics for you because I know you haven't seen it. But in the episode itself, it does involve some other character who was like a cop who harassed someone and like was physical with them, and their body cam was off, and they're investigating the fact that they know that this officer was being shitty, and they're trying to say like to like the chief, like, oh, we found like there's missing body cam, but we have the body cam footage. It's like, oh shit, okay, well, cool, so we're gonna address that. Yeah. And then you're gonna fire them. They're like, no. Why? Well, if we fire them, then this happens, and then the union says this, and then if they can fight it on this grounds, and then it becomes like a comedic beat where they keep, there's a passage of time. It's like, and then it turns out that once that happens, they can do this, and then they fight it, and then the joke is like how much the system can protect the officers and all the steps that can happen. Like, we can drop the charges on this innocent person, but we can't suspend them because then this, and then this, and well, what if we fire them? Well, it turns out you can't. And so can you imagine trying to have that conversation at the end of the movie with William? We're like, maybe we don't kill these bad cops. Maybe we could just do this. And he's like, okay, first of all. And then it's just that Brooklyn Nine-Nine scene all over again.
Right.
Like, oh.
And he has to stop the clock.
I'm not saying, yeah. I'm not saying what William's doing is right, but there is no nice way of having that conversation. Holy shit.
No, it's that's why I find him and his it's going to be really telling if they continue with spiral movies and they continue to allow William. I hope he doesn't die in the third movie if they keep making them. But who knows? He might have to. But I don't know. I actually kind of hope they're really mindful about what they do with him, and I feel like they already have been. So good on them. But you know, we've seen franchises get fucked before.
We have.
I just really like being optimistic about something these days. And I'm optimistic about the Saw franchise today. So
yeah, so be and if anything, one of the things that I quite liked about this movie and want to be more optimistic about is continuing this theme. I never brought this up when we discussed the previous two videos because what I'm about to say has been written about and spoken about so much that I don't bring anything new. I'm just regurgitating, but this idea that trends in horror that reflect what's going on in society, especially decade to decade. A lot has been said, for example, about, and this is not as obvious as say Saw, but like one of the reasons why like The Exorcist connected so big, generationally speaking, was that there's a lot of parents who are seeing their kids go off to war and coming back, and my kid is not the same person. My kid is something else. Or that like I'm going to lose my child the way she's literally losing her daughter and is being replaced by something else. There's something that connected to society, and that within each decade that sort of thing happens. And so much was written about in the decade following Saw, like the 2010s, because I think the seventh one was 2010. But maybe even in the few years, I became very aware of the idea of one of the fears of society for the 2000s was this idea that our governing administration was very allowing of torture, and that was something new for us, so much so that we didn't even call it torture. We called it enhanced interrogation. Well, what is that? It's like, well, we simulate someone drowning. You simulate someone drowning? Yeah, that sounds awful. Well, no, it's just interrogation. Like, okay, let me tell you about Gitmo. Like, that was a lot of horrific things to find out our government was allowing for the sake of like protection, information gathering. Okay. So there seems to be within a decade, whatever the fear is, some sort of cinematic horror response to or addressing of. And the rise of torture porn in an era where we're torturing who now? What? Sure. And that works for all these movies that are made in the 2000s. But I respect that if you're going to make a movie in 2020 that's Saw related, that you're not leaning on that theme anymore. And now we have a new theme, a new fear, a new worry, a new problem, a new concern that we can address, that we can use this franchise to respond to.
Yeah.
Bravo, Spiral, for being like a movie of its era.
I agree.
And they're not the first one to do it. Like Get Out.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
I mean, there's a lot of movies that are driven by a sense of racial injustice, of a lack of proper balance of what justice is. I mean, I remember watching Get Out when he's the fucking end of the movie and he's on the road choking her out, and those police lights hit him. Everyone in the theater fucking groaned.
Yes. Everyone.
Without a line of dialogue, we understood. We everything.
Knew what that fucking meant. Yes.
There is something that is being addressed in cinema already, but I'm glad that Spiral is also joining that conversation.
So, me too.
Yay. So yay.
Me too. Well said. I agree.
Des agrees.
She's just getting curly and she's gonna take a nap. Go on.
Do you want to attempt to rank these later? Like or
Oh, I have them ranked. So yeah,
okay?
let's do it.
I don't have them yet. I really need to think about it. So we'll come back for a ranking video.
Yay!
It's interesting because if you asked me to rank them years ago, I mean, without revisiting them, I kind of vaguely, nebulously thought like, well, like 4 and 5 and 6, they're all kind of the same, and then like 7 feels kind of bright and 3D, and like they're all kind of similar. It'd be hard to rank. Now that I've watched them so recently, I see so many differences between them that I'm like, well, now it'd be hard to rank because this one's strength is completely different than this one's strength. So like, how do I? Fuck. So I will have to come back and I'll have to figure that out.
Yeah. I have something to tell you about my ranking, but I'll tell you in the ranking video. So
Cool. Yeah, do that.
yeah.
I will end with this unless you have any final thoughts.
No, go for it.
It has nothing to do with the franchise itself. It's just because this has been fun talking. Thank you for joining me, Eddie. But just a public service announcement for people out there that the little white puppet with the spirals on his cheeks and little eyes and the hair on the tricycle. Just want to politely remind everyone, in case you didn't remember, didn't know, that's not Jigsaw. That's Billy. There's one little thing that gets under my skin. It's the new Frankenstein's monster versus Frankenstein. I fucking hate when people go call Jigsaw this. And look, I'm dressed up as Jigsaw for Halloween. I'm like, that's not fucking Jigsaw. If you like the movie enough to dress up as it, that's Billy the puppet. It's Billy the puppet. It's Frankenstein's monster, not Frankenstein, for the new millennium. And just a reminder, just a friendly reminder.
Okay. Can you imagine like somebody dressing up as Michael Myers and going, "Hey, look at me, I'm Halloween." Or even worse, "Hey, look at me, I'm Jason." Anyway.
I just had this horrible vision of and it's the Ralph Wiggum meme, but like Ralph Wiggum dresses Leatherface. He's like, "I'm a Texas chainsaw." Like,
I tip my hat to you, sir.
Thank you for tipping, and thank you for joining me. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for suggesting this. It was a good rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, totally. I'm really glad we did.
Yeah, me too. And thank you all for watching. We'll be back to rank. So join us for that.